struggling with names today.
You're asking the wrong guy. I'm
But
too young
Nick
for that.
Saban basically said, we tried to get him into the portal for 2 straight years and he wouldn't do it. It's like, now that he's out of Alabama, he could admit that. But that's what's going on everywhere in all sports. It's not just football, it's all sports that these coaches are trying to lure players into the portal. And Wisconsin finally saying, we had a contract with Xavier Lucas. It's not like it was the old days where it was kind of just an agreement based on NIL. They had a revenue sharing contract with Xavier Lucas, and he tried to enter the portal. Wisconsin said no. And now the Badgers are filing suit against Miami. Big story from Ross Dellinger. Could have a lot of ripple effects around the world of college sports. We'll continue to talk about it on the other side. Again, Jake Lyman and Connor Newt, we're in for Jared Stillman today. Later on in the show, we're going to get to the Titans. What would Cam Ward get out of sitting on the bench? I know Jared talked a little bit yesterday about, are we sure that Cam Ward shouldn't sit? But we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll also get into the College World Series and a little bit more on the NBA Finals as well. Again, Jake Lyman, Connor Newt filling in for Jared Stillman today here on Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063. The Game. This week's Nashville's best deal is Body Rock. Plank, lunge, twist, and push your limits with Body Rock's dynamic muscle sculpting Pilates-inspired classes designed to rock your body to the core. Get half off a $50 gift card now at thegamenashville.com/deals to use at any of Body Rock's 4 Nashville locations while supplies last. Jake Lyman, Connor Newt filling in for Jared Stillman today. We're looking at this article from Yahoo Sports that just came out within the last hour or so from Ross Dellinger, looking at Wisconsin filing a lawsuit against the University of Miami for, again, quote-unquote, poaching Xavier Lucas while he was under contract with the Badgers. And the ripple effects that this could have, not just on college football, but all college sports, if the judge was going to hand down some sort of punishment here. Because we know that this has been going on for years, pretty much since NIL was instituted and the transfer portal became basically free agency, that coaches at bigger schools are going to reach out to some of these players at smaller schools or less prominent schools and try and drag them into the portal and over to their program. I was mentioning Nick Saban on the draft coverage 2 years ago. He was talking about Quinyon Mitchell, the Toledo cornerback, right, and basically just saying, yeah, we tried to get this guy to get into the portal for 2 years, and he wouldn't do it. You know, it's something that Saban would have never said while he was still the head coach at Alabama, because that doesn't happen according to coaches who are actually doing it. The coaches who have it done to them will go out there and say it. I know, was it Texas Tech softball was kind of in some hot water a couple of weeks ago because one of Tennessee's players who was on the Women's College World Series team, basically hopped in the portal the day after their season ended and committed to Texas Tech immediately. So there was some tampering possibly going on there.
Conversations happening.
So again, this isn't just college football. It's happening in every sport where the money talks and these coaches are reaching out to these players and saying, hey, I know you're not in the portal, but I'll give you $400,000 if you get into the portal and come to our school. And this lawsuit could change that. Again, it's a little bit different because it's not NIL, and that's where a lot of these offers were coming from. This is the revenue sharing. And Wisconsin had a contingent contract signed with Lucas that if the house settlement was agreed to, he would get X amount of money from the revenue sharing. The judge kind of has to make the decision of, this was signed in January before the house settlement came down, and Lucas was trying to get into the portal before the house settlement came down. Does this contract still hold up, even though there were still a couple of contingencies that hadn't come through yet in order to get this revenue sharing money?
Right. I think my confusion with the whole situation is, where does administration come into play here? Like, the Miami administration allowed a Wisconsin rostered player to register for classes at their university on opposite ends of the country. Where are the guardrails? I realize this is the whole conversation we're having, but what in God's green earth needs to happen for things to get fixed around here?
Yeah, it is interesting because as a student, Lucas has the right to enroll in classes wherever he wants to, right? Like, if they accept him into the school, he is allowed to become a student wherever he goes.
Not as a scholarship Division I football player.
Right. It's interesting. And I mentioned in the last segment that Xavier Lucas has an attorney, Darren Heitner, who said that he would file a lawsuit against Wisconsin if they tried to stop Lucas from competing with the Hurricanes this year. Basically, this is how it happened. This is from the Yahoo Sports article. A freshman last year, Lucas withdrew from classes and enrolled academically at Miami in January, a move to skirt NCAA rules requiring athletes to enter the portal to communicate with another school. Lucas enrolled for the fall 2025 semester, but was reclassified to spring 2025. So basically, yes, he basically said, fine, if you won't let me in the portal, I'm just going to go to Miami and try and play. Stop me.
I mean, I don't blame him as a player, if we're being all fully honest. I don't blame him for taking that approach.
Right.
That said, shame on the two universities, because there was obviously no communication between that, first of all. And they're just taking advantage of the Wild West right now. And maybe they should. This is the last of, you know, things happening before July 1st, which is when the revenue sharing kicks in and things are going to start getting cracked down on. But it's just the morals of it for me. I just don't understand why there are no, you know, guardrails. I keep using that word, but it's the only word that comes to mind.
Well, the NCAA messed this up when the NIL ruling came down. It basically was said that they can't stop student athletes from making money off their name, image, and likeness. They didn't have any plan whatsoever for how that was going to be instituted. And so you had these collectives popping up where it was basically just donors funneling money through a collective and categorizing it as NIL money, even though it was pay for play. Like that's all that was pay for play. It's not like they were doing commercials. And there are some where maybe they put some like, okay, if this big donor owns a car dealership, maybe they'll go do a commercial or something. But that's not the intent of those collective deals. The collective deals were basically pay for play. Now, there are other ones where like Cooper Flag does a Progressive commercial or a State Farm commercial or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's real NIL. But the NCAA let that happen. So now we have the House settlement, which hopefully adds some structure, but you're still in the same spot of the transfer portal and NIL basically were allowed to become the biggest thing in college sports without any kind of oversight from the NCAA. And now you're dealing with these consequences, and these judges are going to have to make these tough decisions because the NCAA basically has no power to enforce any of their rules.
This is why I like talking about the actual game better than the things that go on behind the scenes. It's a lot easier for me to do that. But it is, I mean, it's an interesting situation. Texter on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com says, what can Wisconsin do if he's been there since January was before the House settlement?
And that's the question is that contract enforceable because it was contingent on the House settlement? I don't know. That's up for the judge to decide.
There's no black and white here.
And I did miss this on my first read through the article. Lucas is from South Florida, and I guess his father suffered a serious illness, so he was trying to go back home closer to his family. So, you know, that could be an important part of this too. I know that the NCAA does have waivers, or they used to, where you could transfer for free, didn't have to sit out a year if it had to do with getting closer to home because a family member was going through some sort of illness or whatever it was. So maybe that's something that they have to do. But the NCAA said in January to Yahoo Sports, NCAA rules do not prevent a student athlete from unenrolling from an institution, enrolling at a new institution, and competing immediately.
Well, there you go.
So that's the NCAA basically said, we can't do anything about this.
Yeah.
So Wisconsin has brought it to the courts. Now that the House settlement has come down, the deal was supposed to go, all of these contingent House settlement deals were supposed to go into effect July 1st when schools are able to start paying these players. So maybe this is the first of many of these lawsuits that we're going to start to see, because a lot of these schools did want to sign these players to these deals contingent on the House settlement because you want to lock these players in, even if you don't know 100% that revenue sharing is going to be a thing. Now that it is, I wonder if there are some other players out there who tried to get out of their contingent contracts and get into the transfer portal.
And I think those will come out here shortly.
Right. This may be the first of many. Again, Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports reporting that Xavier Lucas, a former defensive back at the University of Wisconsin, transferring to Miami. Wisconsin is suing Miami for a breach. I think tortious interference, I think, is exactly what they're.
Those are big words.
Yes, I took one business law class in school, so I learned a little bit about that. Tortious interference is what they are suing, saying Miami interfered with UW-Madison's relationship with Lucas by making impermissible contact with him and engaging in tampering. We'll continue to talk about this on the other side. Big news in college sports. Wisconsin suing Miami for tampering with defensive back Xavier Lucas. Jake Lyman and Connor Newt filling in for Jared Stillman today. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Tune into ESPN 94.9 The Fan tonight as the Nashville Sounds take on the Iowa Cubs. Pregame begins at 6:20. First pitch is at 6:35. Coverage also available on the Game Nashville app and at thegamenashville.com. Sounds baseball on ESPN 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks and Family Leisure. I'm actually going to head over to the Sounds game tonight.
Oh, big one tonight.
Big one. Shota Imananga for the Cubs. Rehab assignment. One of the better pitchers in the NL, so
yeah,
should be good.
This is the one to go to.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I mean, Sounds game's always fun. Friday night looks like should be beautiful weather, so
yeah,
I recommend it. Jake Lyman, Connor Newt in for Jared Stillman today on Stillman and Company. It is a Fireball Hot Take Friday. We're looking at the recent news that Wisconsin is suing Miami over the alleged tampering of the transfer of defensive back Xavier Lucas. We've talked a lot about what this means moving forward. I think the biggest thing this could mean, if the judge sides with Wisconsin and says that that contract is enforceable, you mentioned it earlier, multi-year contracts. This could be the first big domino to fall to start to get enforceable contracts that say, if you come to our school and we pay you X amount of money out of our revenue sharing, you have to stay for 2 full years before you can enter the transfer portal. Maybe this is the first domino that makes those contracts enforceable, because right now, we saw it with Nico. You can make these deals, but it does feel like they're kind of just recommendations of, all right, if you stay this long, you'll get paid this much, and if you leave, there's really not much we can do.
That should have been the first domino to fall, was the Nico situation, and then you had the Madden Iamaleava thing where he was under contract with Arkansas and then just up and leaves before taking a snap on the field.
Arkansas UCLA trying to get their money back too.
I mean, this is like you said earlier, this one won't get as much coverage as it should. But to your point, I think this is the first major publicized domino to fall as we move towards, a new era. Multi-year contracts are coming. I'm just going to tell you that right now. You can hate it, you can love it, whatever. I personally think it is the best thing for the state of college football right now.
I think it's the only thing that can fix what we have right now, which is just the constant roster churn. Especially, like, football is a little different because it's 85-man rosters, and you're not going to lose 50 guys in one offseason for the most part. Like, you might lose 10 to 20, which is a lot, but the portal, you don't lose your entire roster in one offseason. But basketball, right now, like men's basketball, not to use Vanderbilt as an example of bad because it worked out for them, that when Jerry Stackhouse left, Mark Byington comes in and just uses all transfers to make up his team. And it gets him to the NCAA tournament.
And that was the case for a lot of teams. Kentucky did that. They did it again this year. I think that's sort of the case that happens when you bring in a new coach. A lot of these players are going to hit the portal. And you kind of, in basketball specifically, you have to use the portal to build out roster. Football is a little different because, like you said, 85-man rosters. Make sure you cut before the season starts.
Yeah, there's encourage transfer.
There's a slight thing at the top that says you are over your limit. Encourage your transfers. But football is a little different because, more guys will hit the portal, but it doesn't really have an effect on your roster.
It doesn't change the entire makeup of your team.
Right.
For the most part. I'm sure there are situations when a coach leaves and pretty much all of your key players do enter the portal.
Maybe for smaller G5 schools.
Right. But, Alabama, when Nick Saban retired, there were some players who transferred, but it wasn't a mass exodus like you see in basketball sometimes where, a coach leaves, or baseball. Like we've seen it with Virginia and Mississippi State over the last couple of weeks, where Brian O'Connor from Virginia takes the Mississippi State job. All of his commits and a bunch of his players get in the portal. They go to Mississippi State.
Right.
Duke's head coach takes the Virginia job. All of Duke's players go to Virginia. Like, I think eventually we're going to start to get these contracts where that your roster is going to stay, for the most part, the same. You might see a transfer here or there, but it's not going to be thousands of players in the transfer portal every single year, which I think is good because fans, I think this might be just my opinion, college fans are losing connection with some of these teams because the players are different every year.
Yeah.
I remember growing up watching Virginia Tech basketball, and Malcolm Delaney played 4 years there. Eric Green played 4 years there. And you could really get to know these players and you root for them for half a decade. Now it's with some of these players, yeah, maybe they stick around for 2 or 3 years,
See,
but
I'll
it's not
counter,
guaranteed.
I'll counter you with that as a Kentucky fan.
Yeah, where one and done
every
city.
single year you had to learn a new roster. So I'm used to it. I understand it, but I can see how the casual fan is upset with it because it's something new to learn every day. It is very rare these days that, if a coach leaves or gets fired or, vice versa, that a player or their entire class isn't going to leave. We saw that last year when Jim Schlossnagle left for Texas.
Right.
Not a lot of players from A&M hit the portal. Jace Laviolette, arguably the best player in the SEC, stayed at Texas A&M. Yep. It's very, very rare that you see that. And I think by implementing contracts, you're going to limit that a little bit more. You're going to have, the same roster for 2 to 3 years. And I think that's good for the sport because I think it draws more eyes to your product. I think if I'm an Alabama fan and I know, let's just use Ty Simpson, for example. If I know Ty Simpson is going to be the starting quarterback at Alabama for the next 3 years because he's under contract, I'm probably more likely to fall in love with the team because I know what the players are good at and what I have more time with them.
And I think the main argument to this would be it's anti-player to want to enforce these multi-year contracts and not let the player gain the most value they can. Because let's say John Smith or, we'll use Ty Simpson at Alabama. Actually, that's a bad example because there's not really anywhere else he would go.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of maybe a younger quarterback at a bad. I mean, you can look at Diego Pavia at New Mexico State 2 years ago.
Noah Fafita. Is that his name?
Sure. Yeah. Noah Fafita. Let's say he signs a 2-year deal and in year 1, he blows up, finishes second in the Heisman. People might say it's anti-player to say, no, he has to make exactly the same amount of money that he was going to make in that deal, and he can't go test his market anywhere. But I also, I think it is the best thing for the sport long-term to make sure that players can't just go wherever they want and play wherever they want every single year. Like there has to be some sort of disadvantage to hopping around from team to team to team because right now there's not. And you have these players with the COVID years who were on their 7th season of college sports and they've played with 5 different universities.
Yeah.
That's not good for the sport.
No, it's not. And most of the players you see doing this are the ones that can't make it as a starter on a big time program. Like the ones that start out of Georgia and then transfer to a Georgia State, then make their way back up to, I don't know, Troy.
And then they're 24 years old by the end and they can go play at Auburn or something like that at the end.
Chad Baker Mazzara.
And then go to USC after that.
Right.
I understand. I'm not trying to be anti-player because I do think these players should be able to maximize their earnings, but there has to be some sort of rule on what the transfer portal, how often you can get in the transfer portal.
Yeah. And I'm not saying we should go back to, you transfer once, you got to sit out the whole year. I think those days are over. But I do think we should have rules set in place where, hey, if you transfer in the fall window, you cannot hit the portal again until fall window of 26.
Right. Make it a full 365 days.
Yes.
And that's what I think the House settlement is leaning towards, is that if you sign this revenue sharing deal, you have to stay a full academic year. So you enroll, you start taking classes in August, you have to get through May and your final exams in May before you can enter the portal, which it's not going to solve everything because people will just, they'll wait until they can get in the portal next and they'll do it that time. But it might start to close the floodgates a little bit of every single year you're seeing half basketball rosters and a quarter of football rosters get into the portal and churn up everything. Maybe you're only seeing 10% of these athletes getting into the portal, and it starts to become a little bit more consistent on what you're seeing from these schools on a year-to-year basis.
You're not going to but you're not going to completely eradicate transfer portal culture.
No, the the door is open. It's not going to be closed.
Right. But you can limit that a little bit by implementing, these multi-year contracts, these new house settlement rules. And like we said, I think that's good for the sport. Is it ideal from where we were, 10 odd years ago with a 4-team playoff? And if you transfer, you got to sit out a full year. No, I wish we could go back to those days of traditionalism. But this is the world we live in now. This is college sports it's a product. It's a business, more importantly. It's a growing product, which is surprising considering how massive it is in the region we live in, especially. But I think that by implementing more guardrails and more things, I know I'm probably preaching to the choir, you're going to have a better product. You're going to have more, money coming in. You're going to have more viewership. Not that college football is lacking any viewers, but
It's true.
It would just be better for the sport.
I think you just need a happy medium. Right now, the movement is way too much. I think back in the day, like you were talking about, the traditional model of you have to sit out a year if you transfer. And, it used to be if you transfer within the same conference, you got to sit out 2 seasons.
Yeah.
That's a little too much. And you had all these waivers being declined by the NCAA. I think what it was 10 years ago was too strict. Now it's not strict enough. We need to be
Right.
the the Goldilocks. We need to find Baby Bear's bed. It's just right in the middle.
What a analogy right there.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you have thoughts on this, again, we are reacting to Ross Dellinger's story at Yahoo Sports that Wisconsin is suing Miami for tampering with defensive back Xavier Lucas while he was under contract with the Badgers. We'll finish up this conversation next. Coming up at 3, we're going to dive into the Titans. Should Cam Ward sit to start off his NFL career? I'm not so sure. We'll get into that at 3. Jake Lyman, Connor Newt filling in for Jared Stillman today here on Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063, The Game. Jared out today. Jake Lyman, Connor Newt filling in for Mr. Stillman on this Fireball Hot Take Friday. Wrapping up our conversation on the news today from Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports that Wisconsin is suing Miami over tampering with defensive back Xavier Lucas, who has since moved on from the Badgers to the Hurricanes. I feel like we've hit most angles of this, Connor, on what this could mean for college sports moving forward. The ripple effects of this decision, again, I don't know if a lot of people are going to pick this up moving forward. I saw On3 did put out the full complaint from Wisconsin.
Was it followed by a graphic that said?
There wasn't actually, maybe there was.
Did it just say tampering?
Tampering, probably. But I also saw, as I was scrolling through X during the break, Jake Brown from LSU baseball, I guess, was asked about their routine or something, or, what they need to be successful at LSU. And his quote was, "We came here to play baseball. We're not really scholars. So Coach Johnson does a good job of laying it out for us and make going out there and executing as simple as it can be." So
We're
basically,
athletes. We don't go to class.
Saying without saying that they don't do a whole lot in school. It is just funny how, again, we were just talking about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, how strict the NCAA was with this stuff. And there were penalties going out, and, schools were having to self-impose penalties all the time, pretty much outside of Michigan getting slapped on the wrist a couple of times for sign stealing and buying cheeseburgers the last couple of years. The NCAA hasn't really enforced a whole lot of stuff.
I mean, there were a couple minor cases. Kansas basketball comes to mind,
right?
With Bill Self's cheating scandal, and Tennessee comes to mind with the
fall
McDonald's,
guy, Jeremy Pruitt,
the scapegoat, as he is deeming himself. I think he's running for Senate now too.
Really?
That I saw.
Wow,
he's running with Bruce Pearl. But yeah, you're right. Outside of a few minor slaps on the wrist, there hasn't been any major, death bans like in SMU or Nebraska.
You don't see the death
like
penalty getting waved around as even a possible punishment anymore. Maybe I'm wrong here, but I think it might have started with the whole UNC thing of UNC. Their players just didn't go to class. They had fake majors, and the NCAA said they can't do anything because those classes were open to other students. They said that because it wasn't an exclusively athletes issue, they couldn't do anything about it. Maybe that's not the inflection point, but I feel like that's the last time that the death penalty was being waved around as a possible consequence.
I mean, we thought we were going to get it with Michigan and the whole Jim Harbaugh thing, sign stealing and all that. But that was more fan speculation than it was
than the NCAA
journals
actually putting it out there. And after watching the documentary on the sign stealing, I understand it's outside of the rules, probably wasn't great what Connor Stallions was doing, but was it as big of a deal as people made it out to be? Like, it was on the borderline of cheating in advanced scouting.
Sure. But you look at that Michigan team, that was the most talented team in the nation. And it shows. They won a national championship.
Right. I'm not saying it wasn't wrong what they did, but that's not death penalty territory.
Right.
What they did. I know the Tennessee fans out there still think that Michigan gave South Carolina their signs.
They did not. I promise you.
I have a tough time believing it, and I'm sure we're going to get texters saying that they have evidence that they did, but I just don't think that was that big of a deal. I think the NCAA,
I think we'd know about that if that were the case.
The ability to punish from the NCAA seems to have been diminished. It's up to the courts now, basically. Everything is being taken to the courts, and the NCAA, as we know, does not have a very good record in the courtroom, and especially over the last few years.
A lot of it is state specific too. Like the whole Michigan case, a lot of it took place in Ann Arbor.
Right.
Michigan courts. So take what you will. Maybe those state courts are a little bit biased towards, it's like that Saturday Night Live skit with John Cena as the Alabama football player. You ever seen that? Where he has his final project, and all his final project is he nails a banana to a piece of plywood. That's
you're
what
right.
It's like.
I mean, there's there is a different standard for these athletes, especially in a state like Alabama or a state like Michigan, where, yeah, I mean, I'm sure professors are going to be a lot more lenient with some of these players. And I'm sure that some of the judges might want to help out these universities, especially if maybe they went there. Again, this is all speculation, but the NCAA has basically resorted to they have to get judges to enforce their rules, and lately they haven't been. So we'll see how this lawsuit turns out. Again, Wisconsin suing Miami over the possible tampering with defensive back Xavier Lucas, who unenrolled from Wisconsin and is now with the Hurricanes. I'm sure we won't get any kind of resolution on this in the next couple of months or anything,
Yeah.
probably a year, but could end up having a domino effect on the rest of college sports and how these revenue sharing contracts are going to be enforced moving forward now that the House settlement has come down. Interesting conversation. We'll have to see what comes out of that. We're going to move on in the next hour to the Titans. Jared Stillman had some comments yesterday, and this is Jared's show. I don't like going at Jared on Jared's show.
I'll do it.
But he continues to talk about Cam Ward possibly sitting to start off his rookie year. And I just don't understand it.
Let it die.
We're going to talk about that coming up next. Jake Lyman, Connor Newt, we're filling in for Jared Stillman today here on Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063, The Game. Hour number 2 on this Fireball Hot Take Friday. We are presented by Southern Bank of Tennessee, your bank for small business. Jake Lyman and Connor Newt filling in for Jared today, along with David Reed. We are broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Fun first hour, chatting about the news that Wisconsin suing Miami over tampering, and we'll see what comes of that over the next couple of months, maybe a year. But time to move on to the Titans. Yesterday, Jared Stillman went back to his take that the Titans should possibly sit Cam Ward to start off his rookie season. And he's talked about this for a while, and I understand all the comparisons of a lot of the great quarterbacks have sat to start their career. But I think the difference is that who is Cam Ward sitting behind?
Bingo. The only way I would feel comfortable with sitting Cam Ward is if you have a solid veteran to start over him. Look at Drake May. Drake May sat behind Jacoby Brissett.
Right.
Want to go back further? Baker Mayfield sat behind Tyrod Taylor.
Right. Justin Herbert sat behind Tyrod Taylor.
I would have loved Tyrod Taylor here.
Me too. Great. He signed a 2-year deal with the Jets, sadly, though. Patrick Mahomes sat behind Alex Smith. Lamar Jackson sat behind Joe Flacco.
Yep.
I understand that the argument against this would be, well, they should have signed somebody like that this offseason. And I get that. And if you had done that, I could see the case for, if you had signed, Sam Darnold wouldn't have done that for a 1-year deal. Joe Flacco or Jameis Winston even, or Russell Wilson. Fine. You let that guy start for a year. I can understand the argument, but Cam Ward also isn't like a lot of these quarterbacks that you've seen. Like, he played 5 years of college football.
Right. And we're not, sunshine pumping like a certain documentary we'll probably be doing here shortly. But I'm with you. The only way I'd feel comfortable benching Cam Ward, especially taking him first overall, is if he had a good veteran quarterback to sit behind.
I just don't get what the advantage of sitting him would be. You'd be sitting him just to sit him. Yeah. And sure, yeah, like he might learn a little bit watching his first couple games, but I feel like he'd learn a lot more playing in his first couple of games.
That's what Chase tells us all the time. The best way to learn is by doing. And I think by doing and throwing him out there, he's going to learn a lot more. And we're going to learn a lot more of what kind of a quarterback he is.
And I think a difference with some of these teams too, like you talk about Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, possibly 2 of the top 3 quarterbacks in the league, 2 of the top 4 quarterbacks in the league. Those were teams that were already competitive who traded up to get these guys.
Yeah.
Like the Chiefs had just played they had just lost they lost to the Titans in Patrick Mahomes' rookie season. When Mariota threw the touchdown to himself.
Right.
That was Alex Smith's last game with the Chiefs.
Yes.
But they were in the divisional round of the playoffs the year before. The Ravens with Flacco, they were always competitive. They brought these guys in because they knew they were projects. Cam Ward, I don't think he's a project quarterback. I think he's a guy who is pretty plug and play. Yeah, maybe I'm not saying that he's going to jump in and immediately be a star, but I just don't think there's a whole lot he can learn sitting on the bench. He's going to learn a lot more going out there, taking snaps, and maybe making some mistakes, but it's going to be better in the long term for Cam Ward to be out there on the field.
Well, with the capital you passed up on and the place you took Cam Ward, he better be plug and play. Not to sound like Jared, but I'm with you. I don't think he's as much a project as people are making him out to be.
Right.
I don't want to say he's completely plug and play because we still don't know what kind of a quarterback he is and what kind of decisions he's capable of making on a pro level. But I do think he obviously has a lot more to develop too. But I think we kind of learned this throughout the draft process. He's the most refined quarterback prospect out there this year.
And Jared will talk about Anthony Richardson. I know he loved Anthony Richardson coming out in that 2023 draft. Anthony Richardson played, 12 college football games?
And he wasn't a good quarterback.
Right. He was drafted because of his tools, and the Colts should have sat him. Like, there was no reason to trot Anthony Richardson out there as early as they did.
They ruined him.
But Cam Ward's not Anthony Richardson. Cam Ward is not being drafted off of traits. He's being drafted off of his ability and what he's already done at the college level. He should be able to do that moving forward. And again, I'm not saying it's going to be perfect when he walks into the NFL, but he's played so much at this point. I think sitting him might even hurt him because it gets him out of the rhythm of being a football player.
Right. Well, I think he's got probably one of his biggest challenges in his debut game, and that's going to
Denver.
Maybe the hardest place to play in the entire NFL against one of the best secondaries in the NFL. I wouldn't judge him off of one game.
It might be bad.
It might be.
But I've said it before. Marcus Mariota and Will Levis had two of the greatest debuts for a quarterback of all time. They threw 4 touchdowns, no interceptions in those games.
2 of 3 to do it.
Right. Fran Tarkenton was the only other quarterback to throw 4 touchdowns. Neither of those guys panned out. You got to have patience with Cam Ward, but he's going to learn a lot this season. And I think by the end of the year, you're going to be saying, man, he made some mistakes early in the season, but we're starting to see the game slow down for him. And hopefully that's what works out by him getting his feet wet right off the bat and starting week 1. Let's go to our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Adam in Portland is waiting. Adam, good afternoon. What you got for us?
Hey, Jay. So my hot take is that Jared's actually right on this. And I've got 9 years. I've got 9 years of proven disagreeing with him track record. So, I think he is. Ideally, yes, you would like for him to be able to sit. Unfortunately, what Jared doesn't see is that we have no choice. There is zero choice of putting in a different player in there. You're trying to get the stadium ready. Just like y'all said, this is a huge industry. And you have to sell seats, and nobody's going to sell them better than Cam. He's got to do it. Ready or not, you have to go, dude. Like you just said, you passed up 4 huge picks to get him. So he's worth 4 players at least. So, yeah, you got to put him in there. I hate it because I feel like he's not ready. Our team sucks. If y'all want to pretend that Dan Moore is the savior, he was the 32nd worst tackle last year, dude. He is – it is what it is. But I think the whole team around Cam sucked. And I think it's going to shake Cam to get out there and start losing football games because he's not used to doing that. But we have no choice, man. Good luck. I hope we win games with him. I don't think it's a good situation to just trot him out there.
Appreciate the call, Adam. I get what you're saying. And, yeah, Dan Moore, I'm not counting on Dan Moore to be an all-pro left tackle. But even if he is the worst starting caliber tackle in the NFL, that is still better than what the Titans were trotting out there last year.
And to his point, the Titans, we're not coming on here and saying they're going to win 10 games.
No, I don't think they're going to be good this year.
They're going to win 5 max.
I would say 6 would be a really good season for this team.
If you win 6 games and Cam Ward has a good season, I would be thrilled.
I just don't. I think people are looking at Cam Ward as a project quarterback, which he is not. He was not drafted because he's only got a big arm and he's fast and, we can mold him into something. He's got a lot to learn, but Cam Ward, I think what you see is kind of what you're getting. That he has played, we went through it, 60 games, 50, 60 games of college football. So it's not like Anthony Richardson or Trey Lance, who played basically just one season, and you needed to mold the tools that they had. Cam Ward has played a lot of football. I think he's got to keep playing football. I understand that the offensive line.
Yeah, a couple of texters on that.
The offensive line is probably going to be average at best.
Yeah.
But
would you feel better throwing Brandon Allen out there? How much development would Brandon Allen contribute to your entire roster? Not much, right? Cam Ward, this season's about him. We've said this ad nauseum. Like it or not, like Adam said, you don't really have a choice but to throw Cam Ward out there. I'll say it again. The only way I'd feel comfortable benching Cam Ward is if he had a proven veteran quarterback to sit behind, like a Tyrod Taylor, like a Jacoby Brissett, someone like Joe Flacco, someone like that. The Titans don't have that.
Right. Cam Ward is not Cam Ward is the best quarterback in that room. And honestly, I think the second he has one good game, he might be the most accomplished quarterback in that room. If he goes out and has a good game against the Broncos, I would pass Will Levis on that. I mean,
you know how many total yards in his career Brandon Allen has passing?
It's got to be really low, right?
1,100.
Yeah. So basically 4 good games worth of passing yards.
Will Levis had more last season than Brandon Allen has had his entire career.
And I know people might say throw Levis out there, but you cannot start Will Levis week 1.
I don't think you can play Will Levis.
Week 1, you might be able to get away with it because you're on the road. But if the Titans announce the offense and they've run them out on the field, the smoke flies, and they announce the offense week 2 against the Rams with everybody in attendance, and it's at quarterback, Will Levis, the boos will be.
All 10,000 fans in attendance will boo. Rain down boos.
I mean, it's not an option to bench him, and I just don't think it would be a good option.
I'm not convinced he'll be on the roster by that point.
Yeah.
But that's a different conversation.
It's a different conversation. I mean, I think Brandon Allen's the only other option you would have, and
he's not a starting quarterback.
Like Cam Ward is a better quarterback than him. Cam Ward is not going to gain anything from watching Brandon Allen run the offense out there.
Right.
Let's go back to our phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Dan wants to join in. Dan, what's going on?
Hey, fellas. Good to speak with you. Yeah, I want to add on just a little bit to what you've been saying about the offensive line. No, the reason no veteran signed during the offseason is they don't want to get killed. I mean, everybody said, till you guys just said what you said, everybody's running around going, yay, we fixed our offensive line. We have not. We got a bunch of no-name players that came in here, and it's going to be a brutal year again for any quarterback. So why would a veteran come here to get pulverized? Thank you.
Thanks for the call, Dan. I don't think the Titans really pursued any veteran high-value veteran quarterbacks. Yeah. I think it was pretty much they knew they were drafting Cam Ward at that point. But also, to say that the offensive line is a bunch of no-names, I understand there's hesitancy around Dan Moore because he gave up a lot of sacks last year.
You signed an all-pro guard in Kevin Zeitler.
Right. Like, look at the other 4 guys that you've signed. And Dan Moore, I'm going to leave Dan Moore out because people think that his contract was an overpay, and it probably was.
Maybe will be.
But let's look at the other 4. Peter Skoronski, guard you took 11th overall. Lloyd Cushenberry, if healthy, one of the highest paid centers in the entire league. Kevin Zeitler, highly regarded all-pro right guard. And J.C. Latham, a tackle you took 7th overall. So to say the Titans haven't invested in the offensive line would be just flat out wrong.
But to his point, I don't think the offensive line is fixed.
No, and
people that are saying that it is are just wrong.
We're not going to know, and I think you err on the side of caution with the offensive line, given what we've seen for the past 3-4 years. But the Titans, I think, have done everything they can to try and make that unit more stable than what it's been the last couple of years. And I don't know what Dan Moore is going to be, but as Jared said when they signed him, he was a starting left tackle on a playoff team. Yeah. Those don't hit the market very often. I'm not saying he's going to immediately jump in and be Taylor Lewan, but if he can just be a fine left tackle, I think the rest of the offensive line is going to be greatly improved.
Yeah, we're getting called homers now. The blue Kool-Aid.
The blue Kool-Aid is
Did you say the offensive line was good?
No, I didn't say it was good. I said
neither did I.
I said they're going to be average at best.
Average isn't good.
I said average at best, but average being the 16th best offensive line would be the best offensive line year the Titans have had since 2021. Since the year they were the number 1 seed in the AFC.
Which isn't saying a whole lot.
It's not saying a lot, but I think there is hope that this offensive line could be average this year. 615-737-1025. We'll continue to take your phones and your texts on Cam Ward. Should he start his career? Jared Stillman thinks maybe he should be benched. We think that he should be out there week 1 against the Broncos. We'd love to hear from you. Again, Jake Lyman, Connor Newt, we're in for Jared Stillman today here on Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Tune in to Totally Hits 93.3 on Sunday as the Nashville Cats take on the Southwest Kansas Storm in Clarksville at F&M Bank Arena in the AF1 semifinals. Pregame starts at 4, kickoff at 4:30 with Chase McCabe and Big Joe Dubin. Coverage also available on the Totally Hits 93.3 app and at totallyhitsnashville.com. Continuing our conversation about Cam Ward, Jake Lyman, Connor Newt filling in for Jared Stillman today on this Fireball Hot Take Friday. Jared yesterday said that he's not sure that the Titans shouldn't sit Cam Ward to start this season. I don't understand. I know some of our texters have pointed out the offensive line. 8771 says, yes, immediately throw the rookie QB out there in front of the most suspect offensive line in the league. That won't get him killed. We kind of have disproven that. Again, they haven't played together, and they could go out there and be horrible again. But in terms of investment, they should not be the worst offensive line in the league this year.
On paper.
Right. It's all on paper.
Everything's on paper. This is June. This is speculation season.
Right. And like Robert says, he says, we have no idea how many games the Titans are going to win. They could go to the divisional round or they could win one game. 100%. Like, no one knows. Did anyone think the Commanders were going to make it to the NFC Championship game last year?
No.
Not a chance.
No one thought Jaden Daniels would have the impact he's had.
Right. And I'm not saying that Cam Ward's going to do that. I said 6 games I think would be a solid season for the Titans if they win that match.
Jaden Daniels is an unfair comparison to Cam
right.
Ward, I think.
So is CJ Stroud.
Absolute outliers.
Right. And for that to happen 3 years in a row where a rookie quarterback comes in and leads his team to the playoffs, I don't think that's realistic. But I think Cam Ward, as I said in the last segment, is going to learn a lot more playing than he is going to by sitting on the bench for 3 games before he plays. Because, again, this quarterback room, there's not a whole lot of experience in there. It's not like anyone's going to be imparting a whole lot of wisdom on Cam Ward other than, I'm sure there's some things about how to be a pro and
right.
what to expect from NFL defenses. But it's not like you've got Drew Brees in there telling you all the great things that he did to be great. Like, Cam Ward is not going to learn a whole lot from Brandon Allen, Tim Boyle, and Will Levis.
I mean, it's just, I don't understand the notion we have going on here. You really want to trot Brandon Allen or Tim Boyle out there and let Cam Ward sit behind them and, quote, learn.
It's just not realistic.
I think Cam Ward would learn more on the field in this case than he would on the bench. There's no Alex Smith out there teaching Cam Ward everything.
Yeah.
There's no other option.
Patrick Mahomes was also more of a project than Cam Ward. Like, Patrick Mahomes did not have a whole lot of success in college. He wasn't winning a lot of games. He threw a lot of interceptions. Like, Cam Ward, most seasons wins the Heisman last year.
Put him a year prior to last year.
I don't know if that is a hot take. Is that a Fireball Hot Take Friday that most seasons, Cam Ward's season last year wins the Heisman?
I'd agree with you on most part. I think if he played in Caleb Williams' Heisman season, I think he probably would have won.
Like, Travis Hunter had a historic season where he played both sides of the ball at an award-winning level. That doesn't happen most years. And Ashton Genty almost broke Barry Sanders' record for most rushing yards in season. So, like,
it depends on the year. Like, I think he would beat Caleb Williams. I think he would beat out Bryce Young. I think there are others.
Right. It all depends on the season, but to act like Cam Ward wasn't a successful college quarterback and he played a ton of football, like, he's ready to come in and start day one.
Right.
He is. And I did want to bring up, we talked about it during the break, Charles McDonald from Yahoo Sports put out his top 10 quarterbacks this year. And this is why the Titans getting Cam Ward right is so important. And there's a lot of problems with this list, but the top 5, Mahomes, Jackson, Allen, Burrow, Herbert, all in the AFC.
Yeah. And that's an accurate top 5.
Right.
Say.
I think you could put Jalen Hurts in there.
I think Jaden Daniels may find his way.
Well, and the crazy part is neither of those guys are in this top 10.
Which is ridiculous.
Like, it's wrong. He's got Geno Smith at 8.
That's
which
wild.
This is a whole different point that I was trying to make. The full top 10, it's those 5, then Stafford 6, Prescott 7, Geno Smith 8, Jordan Love 9, CJ Stroud 10. So again, I don't agree with those top 10 quarterbacks, but the top 5, I think it's safe to say that 5 of the top 6 quarterbacks in the NFL are in the AFC. if you want to compete in the AFC and somehow find your way to a Super Bowl, you have to have the star quarterback.
Yeah.
That's not true in the NFC, but in the AFC it is. And
How many star quarterbacks are in the NFC? Maybe Jordan Love.
I think Hurts is the only surefire, like, top 7 guy.
Prescott's got question marks. Love has question marks. Jared Goff, I think, is a solid starter, but he's not going to go out and, take you over the hump.
In the NFC, you can get to the Super Bowl with Brock Purdy.
Right.
Jared Goff. Matthew Stafford.
Nick Frazier's guy. Kyler Murray.
No, Kyler Murray can't make it to Super Bowl. But in the AFC, if you don't have a star quarterback, you're not going to have a chance. If you have to play Mahomes, Allen, Jackson in 3 straight weeks to make it to the Super Bowl, you're not going to outduel those guys with Will Levis. Like, it's just not going to happen. Or Levis may be a bad example. I'm trying to think of, Kirk Cousins or somebody like that.
George Plaster says we're dumb and we had to change. Thanks for listening.
Appreciate you listening. Cam Ward, this season may not be a good season for Cam Ward. Like, it may not be a Jaden Daniels, CJ Stroud type season, but you have to let him play. You have to let him take his lumps. And, if he stays healthy, hopefully next year he can hit the ground running. Even if he doesn't stay healthy, look at Joe Burrow. I'm not saying he's going to be Joe Burrow, but Joe Burrow tore his ACL his rookie season, then came back and led the Bengals to the Super Bowl in his second season.
And some of that is the pieces they put around him.
Right.
Like, he had Jamar Chase. He's honestly, if we're going on paper right now, this is going to be such a homer take, and Jared's going to hate me for saying this. On paper right now, the Titans have a better offensive line than the Bengals. There's my fireball hot take Friday.
The Bengals just don't invest in anything, as we've seen with the whole Trey Hendrickson thing. Skyler says sitting Cam Ward is more about saving him from getting his ass kicked in weeks 1 and 2. Let him start week 3. But
what is there to gain from that?
Are we really going to treat him with, like, baby gloves? Like, if you thought he was worth the number 1 overall pick, that means you think he can go play at the NFL level. Like, what are we doing? Sitting your quarterback against the tough opponents so he can play the easier ones? That's not how the NFL works.
Yeah.
I mean, I get the Broncos and Rams is not the ideal start to your number 1 quarterback, your number 1 overall pick stepping in. Maybe 2 of the better defenses in the league. Broncos for sure. You got Jared Verse on the other side with the Rams. But you can't just be like, oh, well, this opponent's hard. Let's not let Cam start this week. It's just not
how the league works.
615-737-1025. We'd love to take more of your texts and calls as we continue this conversation around Cam Ward and whether he should start week 1 for the Titans. Jake Lyman, Connor Newt filling in for Jared Stillman today here on Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. That was Joel and Davenport yesterday on the TD Power Hour with Jared. Jared talking about the impatience of fans wanting Cam Ward to start right away. TD said for the wrong guy, that might be an issue, but he thinks Cam Ward is the right guy. Jake Lyman, Connor Newt in for Jared Stillman today. I just think that there's such an obsession with wanting young quarterbacks to sit, but it all depends on the player. Like for some players, yes, it makes sense to sit them based on what they did previously and their traits and what they're ready for. But I think other guys, it would hurt them to sit. And we've had some texters saying that, you only want Cam Ward to start for entertainment value. That's not true. I think he will get better from playing. And like TD said, it might not be this year. Like it might not be perfect this year from Cam Ward, but the experiences and the mistakes he makes this year will help him moving forward. That's why you can't bubble wrap him against Denver and LA to start the season. Just say, go against some of the easier opponents. He's got to learn.
Right. And texter on our text line 753-3722 says if you aren't going to start him in week 1, you probably should have taken Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter.
Right.
I don't think you could put it more perfectly than that.
Yeah, you turned down that huge trade offer from the Giants and you took Cam Ward over two guys who, by all accounts, a lot of people thought they were better prospects than Cam Ward. You took Cam Ward because you thought he was your quarterback. And I just don't understand why sitting him would help when you're just sitting him for the sake of sitting him. Like that's what I
think sitting him would be more for quote entertainment value.
Right.
Than it's starting him.
It's sitting him just to say that you sat him for a couple of games to let him get ready. Like unless there is a reason to sit him, don't sit him.
Right.
If he goes through training camp and struggles and Brian Callahan says maybe he needs to marinate a little bit longer,
that's different.
Then that's different. But from what we've seen in mini camp so far and in the offseason programs, I don't think that he's going to be, looking lost out there. I think there's going to be some welcome to the NFL moments for him.
Oh, yeah.
But you have to have those. It's like you can't bubble wrap him until you feel like he's ready to go be Jaden Daniels.
And here's what's good about him that you didn't see with the last quarterback that started for the Titans. He's willing to make mistakes. He said it himself. If he goes out and throws a
four-book
game, which has never been used in the history of football ever, if he goes out and throws 4 picks, he's still going to play like he's on top.
Right.
Because that's his cool, calm, collective confidence that he has. And I'm not out here, sunshine pumping him saying he's the greatest thing since Steve McNair, but he's got that mentality that you haven't seen here in a while.
I think it's important to have realistic expectations with Cam Ward. You have to not expect him to be, as we said, Jaden Daniels, CJ Stroud, because those are extreme outliers, what they did in their rookie season. But he may not be Jaden Daniels. He may not be CJ Stroud right off the bat, but I don't think he's Trey Lance, who played 12 games of FCS football and then went straight into the NFL. Like, there's a difference between these quarterback prospects, and I think just saying sit him because other quarterbacks have had success when they sit first is just it depends on the player, and I don't think Cam Ward is a player who needs to sit.
Yeah. Greg on our text line says, I thought we weren't just handing him the keys. I thought the goal was he has to earn a spot and has to earn that from somebody. Who is on that roster that he has to earn a spot from?
And they're not going to tell him he has the job. They're not going to outright come out to the media and say he has the job. The same thing happened with Jaden Daniels last year. Dan Quinn, I don't think, named Jaden Daniels the starter until the week of the first game.
But they also had quarterback depth of some sorts. They had Taylor Heineke.
Yeah, Heineke was with the Falcons.
Sam Howell.
And they traded Sam Howell to the Seahawks. They're going to do the same exact thing where everybody knows that Cam Ward's going to be the starter, but Brian Callahan will probably not name him the starter until, the Sunday before the first game or whatever it is.
Right.
I don't get what the advantage of sitting him would be because he's not Anthony Richardson. He played 50 plus games of college football. Like he doesn't need to sit.
And he's the number 1 overall pick.
Right.
How many number 1 overall picks have sat?
This isn't like you took a project like Malik Willis.
Yes.
Like, this isn't Malik Willis who you took out of Liberty and knowing that he is a project who has a lot of great traits. You took this guy number 1 overall because he is a good quarterback at the NFL level, not just a guy who you think you can develop. Chris asked, what if they sit him and Levis goes 3-0?
They're not going to start Levis. So that's a scenario we don't have to worry about.
Yeah, I don't think you have to worry about it. I also don't think you have to worry about them going 3-0. Why is it so wrong to say love the confidence and be excited? 3337 says, yeah, I mean, I don't know. There are a lot of people who I think, I said this before the Titans drafted Cam Ward. I think a lot of Titans fans are scared of young quarterbacks because of the struggles they've had before.
Sure.
With Marcus Mariota and Jake Locker.
And that's a valid thing. But this is also the NFL. Like you said, we can't just sit him for a game because, it might be too hard for him. He's got to learn, man.
And you look at those last 2 quarterbacks I mentioned. Marcus Mariota, similar to Cam Ward, played a lot and had a lot of success in college. They started him right away. It didn't work out. Jake Locker, they felt was more of a project. He sat behind Matt Hasselbeck, and it still didn't work out.
Right.
So, it depends on the player, what they need. But whether they sit him or whether they start him, I don't think with Cam Ward is even going to determine how his career works out.
Yeah. Joel asks, what win total do you think Cam Ward needs to call it a successful rookie season?
I don't think there is one.
Yep. I was thinking about that when I read that. I don't think you can put a number on the wins. I think if he goes out and has a great season, maybe contends for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Again, I'm not saying this is what's going to happen. I know some people will take that out of context, but I don't know. I don't think a win total would describe his season. I think his stats would do the talking.
Yeah. And I don't think you can really even focus a ton on what he does early in the year. This is why I'm saying play him, because he has to make some mistakes. And I think maybe the first 2 months of the season, he might struggle. But what he does when you get to November, December, I think is going to tell you what he's going to be long-term more than the first couple months of the season are going to be. Caleb says Cam and the Titans 11-6 this year. Book
Stop it.
I think that's a little optimistic.
I will not book that.
Maybe a lot optimistic. But
decrease that win total by 6 or 7 games and we'll talk.
Again, 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to chime in. Kyle in Shelbyville says, there's a perfectly good reason why we should sit Cam this season. This offense is going to be terrible and Cam will be learning bad habits. Defenses will have a 2 or 3 touchdown lead on him in the 4th and will just be pinning their ears back.
Bad habits.
I mean, I don't know how you can say the offense is going to be any worse than it was last year.
Yeah.
The offensive line, again, we talked about the investment that they've put into it. I think Ridley should be about the same as he was last year, 1,000-yard receiver. Pollard should be about the same. Yeah, there's questions in the secondary weapons. I don't know what Alec Iamaner is going to be. I don't know what Chimere Dike is going to be. The tight end group is kind of all over the place, but I still think the offense is probably going to be in a better spot than it was last year because the offensive line should be improved. So, if you threw Will Levis out there, I think Cam Ward should have more success than Will Levis did.
Yeah. You're all over the place, by the way.
I saw that. Yeah. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Does Cam Ward need to sit or should he start right away? I think we're both on the side of, not throw him into the fire, but he needs to make these mistakes.
He's the number 1 pick.
He's the number 1 pick. He's not a project. I think that's what people are misunderstanding, is that they think Cam Ward is some long-term developmental project. He's much closer to a Caleb Williams type prospect than you think. I'm not saying he's Caleb Williams, because Caleb Williams was, he was widely regarded as one of the best quarterback prospects to come out in a long time, but he's much closer to that than he is to Malik Willis.
Right. I mean, he's not 100% plug and play. You're going to get immediate results. He's got some developing to do because he's a rookie quarterback.
Yep.
But I think you're right. I think he's a lot closer of a prospect to a Caleb Williams or a Bryce Young than a lot of people give him credit for.
He was the number 1 overall pick for a reason.
Yes,
615-737-1025 is the phone number. We'll finish up this conversation coming up next. Coming up later on the show, we're going to look at the College World Series a little bit as Coastal Carolina and LSU get ready to square off in a 3-game series this weekend. And we'll take a little bit of a broader look at that of the SEC looking to continue its dominance, not only in baseball, but across all sports. And also Game 7 coming up on Sunday, Pacers and Thunder. We'll preview that later on in the 5 o'clock hour. We'll wrap up our Cam Ward conversation coming up next. Jake Lyman, Connor Newt in for Jared Stillman today. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3. The Game, wrapping up hour number 2.
Whoever labeled that as instrumental needs to have a.
Poor Jake
we need to have a.
He had no idea. When
I was
to come
very
in.
confused.
Instrumental means.
Stillman and Company,
We are
102.5.
taking a request though.
Yes, we are. Send them into the text line, 615-737-1025.
That might be the first time anyone has ever said that. Send in your music requests to the text line.
I kind of just want to see what people will send.
We're all over the place.
Jake Lyman, Connor Newt, in for Jared Stillman today. Here on this Fireball Hot Take Friday. I didn't think it would be as big of a hot take that Cam Ward should start week 1, but
it should.
It seems like a lot of people out there do want him to sit. I did want to mention, we just saw on ESPN, NFL Live's on right now. They said they're going to be broadcasting live from Tight End U next week, next Tuesday at Vanderbilt. So Tight End U back in town, George Kittle's annual Tight End Summit.
We should put in with the suit. See if we can get out there.
I would guess all 3 tight ends will be there, right? I mean,
I would definitely expect Gunnar Helm to be there.
I would hope Gunnar Helm's going to be there. I was actually going to mention that I think Gunnar Helm's development is going to be such a massive key for Cam Ward.
I've hammered that.
Because we've mentioned over and over on our Saturday show that edge rusher is such a big need for the Titans next year. Even if Femi Oladejo is good, you still need another top-level edge rusher. Cornerback could be a big need. But eventually the Titans have to invest in tight end if one of these guys doesn't work out.
Yeah. And, I mean, like I always say, a rookie quarterback's best friend is a tight end.
I mean, Marcus, he peppered Delaney Walker for his first 2 years. So I would love to see Gunnar Helm work out. And hopefully he is at tight end U next week, because getting to be around all those guys has to be helpful for a guy who hasn't played an NFL game yet. I know Chig's been there. I think Wiley was there last year too.
I know Chig.
I mean, if it's at Vanderbilt, you would assume it's
why wouldn't they?
The easiest thing to do is for all of the tight ends to be invited. So hopefully we'll see those 3 out there.
Yeah. I mean, it does make sense that it's at Vanderbilt, because doesn't Kittle live here?
Yeah, George Kittle lives here. Best friends with Philip Forsberg.
I love seeing him at games.
I was half hoping when there was the little, when Deanna Rossini put out that George Kittle was unhappy with his contract, and
I know
they weren't sure that they were going to get done. I was half hoping there was a chance that they could get Kittle, because how perfect would George Kittle be as a guy to help out Cam Ward in his rookie season?
Oh, he'd be great. He'd be a great locker room guy too.
Right. Immediately. I mean, I'm sure he gets the comp to Taylor Lewan in terms of personality a lot. Like, those guys mesh well.
Yeah.
And Lewan was a great locker room guy, at least after his first couple seasons. So, it was a pipe dream. I don't think he was ever even close to leaving San Francisco, but he does live in Nashville. So maybe down the road, there's a chance that George Kittle ends his career in the two-tone blue. But even if not, hopefully he'll be imparting some knowledge on the Titans' young tight ends this week or next week at Tight End U at Vanderbilt. Anyway, finishing up our conversation on Cam Ward, we still haven't gotten to training camp yet. So all of this could be just completely irrelevant depending on what Cam Ward does in his first training camp. If he goes out there and is throwing picks every day and doesn't seem to have a grasp on the system, then I think Brian Callahan really wouldn't have a choice but to sit him. I just don't think that's what's going to happen. Based on what we've seen, Cam Ward seems to be on the right pace to be ready to start week 1. And if he's ready to start week 1, you don't bubble wrap him against 2 tough opponents just to sit him. He's got to be able to face those teams if he's going to be a successful NFL quarterback.
I mean, do you want to put him training wheels on? Hey, go play the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Like, maybe I'm missing something, but has a team ever done that? Like, taken their, I know that obviously there have been times that a young quarterback has sat a couple of games and then come in week 3, week 4, but just been like, oh, we played 2 tough defenses our first 2 weeks, so let's not start him in those games.
You can't do that. This is a professional league. We don't baby people here.
And I know everybody says you're going to get him killed, but he has to go out there eventually, right?
Yeah. I mean, you're delaying the inevitable.
Right. Like, why not get him the reps? It does take time for the game to slow down. Why not start that process immediately instead of saying, you know what, Patrick Surtain's reigning defensive player of the year, Jared Verse, reigning defensive rookie of the year. Cam Ward doesn't need to know how to face those guys.
It just doesn't make sense to me. Like, I would start him. Honestly, I'm in favor of him going out because he needs a challenge like that.
Right. And if he struggles, and I know we had Caleb on our text line saying he thinks the Titans go to the divisional round of the playoffs, but I don't think a ton of Titans fans have great expectations for this season in terms of wins and losses. So if Cam Ward does go out and struggles in his first 2 weeks and you start 0-2, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think it's better because he's going to learn from those experiences rather than watching Brandon Allen start 0-2 for the Titans.
Unless Cam Ward goes out there and throws 6 picks in 2 games, I don't think starting 0-2 would be a major reflection of Cam Ward as a quarterback.
No, I agree. I think the Titans, it's very possible no matter who's the quarterback, they start 0-2. But Cam Ward is going to improve a lot more from playing in those games rather than, sitting with a clipboard and watching Brandon Allen lose by 20 in both of those games.
Yeah. I don't understand that narrative that people are trying to drive. Why are we arguing about this?
I mean, we'll find out soon enough. I just thought it was interesting because I did see there was some backlash on Twitter for Jared yesterday when he put out, are we sure that Cam Ward should start for the Titans?
Where are those people for us today? I mean, God, we're getting eaten alive on here.
I mean, it happens. Jared,
thanks for listening.
It's a Fireball Hot Take Friday. So we came with, I guess, our hot take that Cam Ward should start week 1.
I don't know how it's a hot take, but sure.
I mean, I thought TD said it best yesterday when Jared asked him about this, that for the wrong guy, it could be a problem to throw him out there in week 1. But Cam Ward is the number 1 overall pick who's played 4.5 years of college football. He's ready to go. 1032 on our text line says either sit all year or not at all. I mean, I would honestly say if you're going to sit him at all, sit him for the full year.
Yeah. You can't, I don't think you can put him out there week 6 and expect results.
I just think if you're sitting him for a couple of weeks, it's just pointless. Just put him out there. If that, like Jared always says that the Colts should have gone to the podium with Anthony Richardson and said he's not playing at all this year. If that was what the Titans did right when they drafted him, sure.
Fine.
But
you need to sign someone.
Sitting him for 2 games just doesn't make any sense. Craig says, I think it's simple. If Cam can command the huddle and protect himself and not take unnecessary hits, he should play. You learn by doing. Perfect.
Bingo.
I think that's the perfect way to end this hour on Cam Ward.
On a high note.
Yes.
Thank you, Craig.
If Cam Ward can command the huddle and protect himself, he should play. You learn by doing. Well said, Craig. And that'll wrap up our conversation on Cam Ward starting today. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'd love to hear from you. Our phone lines, as always, are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Halfway through the show on this Friday, when we come back, we're going to get into the College World Series. Not being talked about a ton, but we've got a really fun championship series coming up this weekend, starting tomorrow with Coastal Carolina and LSU. The Chanticleers and the Tigers for the title. We'll dive into it next. The Chanticleers.
Allegedly.
I'm sorry. But we will get to that as well as the wider conversation around the SEC and their dominance across college sports this year. Jake Lyman, Connor Newt filling in for Jared Stillman. Hour number 3 coming up here on Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, hour number 3 here on this Friday, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. We are presented by Southern Bank of Tennessee, your bank for small business. Jake Lyman, Connor Newt, David Reed, broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Hour number 3 of the show, we're going to dive into the College World Series. It's been fun out there in Omaha. I want to lead this conversation off with, what was that ninth inning on Wednesday night between Arkansas and LSU? For anybody who didn't watch it, it was one of the craziest innings of college baseball I think I've ever seen. Arkansas had 2 easy opportunities to win that game and gave it away. Shortstop gets a ground ball with runners on first and second. Instead of trying to turn a game-ending double play, he goes to third to get the lead runner. Next batter hits a line drive to left. Left fielder slips, it kicks off him and rolls into the corner, ties the game. And then the next batter, Jared Jones, hits a walk-off single.
Ridiculous.
I mean, I've heard the Arkansas, the Omahogs, that they're cursed. Still haven't won a national championship in baseball. Obviously, in 2018, it was the pop-up down the first base line against Oregon State. If somebody catches it, they're national champions. Instead, it falls in no man's land in foul territory, and they end up losing to the Beavers. I mean, I kind of believe it now after that. I mean, Arkansas, they had it handed to them twice and couldn't take advantage.
It was a self-inflicted loss, though.
Right.
Like, if that shortstop turns it to second, then they turn it back over to first.
It was routine.
It's routine. They had 3 steps on the runner to first.
It was an easy, tailor-made double play. And obviously a lot goes into that. Like, you got to get it to second. He's got to turn it. You got to make the catch at first.
Right. But
something could have gone wrong. But
what a weird thing to go for the lead runner headed to third.
Especially in a 2-run game.
Right.
Like, it wasn't a 1-run game where that run ties it. That run means nothing. And as a shortstop, with a runner on first and 1 out, the only thing he should have been thinking about was turning the double play, and he didn't. It was really strange, but it does set up a really fun national championship series. You got LSU looking for their second title in 3 years and trying to extend the SEC's reign of terror across college baseball for 6 straight seasons, winning the national championship, dating back to that Oregon State title back in 2018. Vanderbilt won it in 2019. Then the 2 Mississippi schools won it, then LSU, then Tennessee. But Coastal Carolina trying to win their second national championship and have won 26 straight games.
They're a fun team.
They are.
They're a really fun team. They play a lot of small ball, too, which is a lot of fun for a little G5 program. Although I'm kind of tired of people acting like Coastal Carolina is this massive underdog. They're a good program. They got a national title to their name. That wasn't that the team that they were quite literally the last team in to the tournament?
I think
and then just
so.
won the whole damn thing.
Yeah, they and that happens before. Ole Miss did it back in
21, 22.
22. Yes, they were the last.
State was 21.
Yes,
That's
Mississippi
right.
State won 21. Ole Miss beat Oklahoma in 22. Coastal Carolina, they're the underdog, but they're a really good team. Like, they've got almost 60 wins on the season. I think it's going to be a fun series. LSU's got a lot of MLB talent. Cade Anderson, who's going to start in game 1, possible number 1 overall pick in the MLB draft. I'm going to butcher his name. Rock Kalowski, their shortstop.
Don't look at me.
Yeah, I wish I had looked up the pronunciation, but
Kowalski.
he is the possible number 1 pick in next year's draft. So LSU's loaded with talent, but Coastal has proven that they can win over and over and over. They have not lost at all in the postseason. They swept their way through the regional, the supers, and now have won all the way through Omaha. It's going to be fun. First game is tomorrow evening, and then I think game 2 is Sunday afternoon.
Yeah,
before game 7 of the NBA Finals. And then if necessary, the final game for the championship would be Monday night.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a fun series. There's a lot of weight towards LSU is going to go in and sweep it easily, and they very well may. There we go. Words are hard.
Stadium Pulse.
Stadium Pulse. Don't bother replying. Anyways, LSU very well. I'm not even going to try anymore. LSU could very well sweep the series, but I think Coastal Carolina is just the hottest team right now.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to make it a fun series. I could see this going to 3, to be honest with you.
I wish I had clipped it, but I didn't really see it until right before we were going on air. The Coastal Carolina players were asked, what do you admire about LSU? And they paused and went, not much. So maybe it gets a little bit feisty between these two teams. Arkansas and LSU, I was really hoping that Arkansas was going to win that game because I thought the winner take all, winner moves on to the championship game would have been really fun. Arkansas is a good team. Like, that is a really good Arkansas team that just got in their own way.
Yeah, as is usually the case for them.
And the SEC got a little unlucky that the two teams they had in Omaha were matched up with each other in the first game. So there was no opportunity for an SEC on SEC national championship after Supers. But both those teams, I would say, were national championship quality teams. LSU has gotten hot at the right time. Jay Johnson looking for his second in 3 years. I would love to see Coastal upset him, though.
I would too. But, you know, I criticize a lot about this, the whole SEC homerism thing, you know?
Yeah.
I want this team to win because they're in the SEC. I'm kind of feeling that this year. I kind of just want to see the SEC domination of baseball continue, just get their 6th straight.
Yeah.
Like, it's an unbelievable streak, and I kind of just want to see it continue.
And we said that if Arkansas had been able to catch a foul pop-up in 2018, it would be 7 straight.
Right.
It is crazy how good the SEC has been in college baseball. Last year, it was the College World Series with 4 SEC teams and 4 ACC teams, and the ACC teams just didn't stand a chance. I think maybe UNC made it to the national semifinals, but pretty much outside of that, the SEC just rolled with the teams they had there. Ken in Paris, Tennessee, correcting me. Yes, Rock Kolowski plays for UCLA, not LSU. I mixed those two up because they played in the game earlier that day before UCLA played Arkansas, and I must have mixed it up. Thank you for the correction there. But Kate Anderson could be the number 1 pick this year for LSU.
Right.
So still a very talented team. Jared Jones has been great for them. LSU is always going to be in it because they just dominate the transfer portal.
I don't want to say they're a baseball school. They'll always be a football school in my mind, but they treat baseball the same way they treat football, from a fan perspective.
Right.
Like, they're all in.
Well, and you see it in all their sports, except for, with the exception of men's basketball lately, which they haven't been very good in, but pretty much everything else for LSU, you don't want to get into a bidding war with the Tigers.
Have we checked in on the Rocco's Jello shot?
They were over
contest?
25,000 last time I checked.
That's ridiculous.
Well, they had the Raising Cane's guy, Todd Graves.
Oh, that's right.
And he was down there with Paul Skeens and Livy Dunn, and I think they just loaded up.
I'm sure they did. He's done that before. He did that last year.
He did that
or 2 years.
2 years ago
when
Skeens and Cruz were playing there, but I don't think they got anywhere close to 25,000.
They're ridiculous.
I mean, think about how much money is being made. I know they donate, I think, $1.50 out of the 5 for every shot that they sell, but
they're just like a little hole in the wall bar.
Right. So
in the middle of Omaha, Nebraska.
$3.50 they're pocketing on all those Jello shots. And between all of the teams, they've probably sold close to like 60,000. So they're making 200 grand, 300 grand probably off of Jello shots only.
I mean, that's their business.
Plus all of the other drinks and food that they're selling. So yeah,
that's vacation.
Whoever came up with the Rocco's Jello shot challenge in Omaha,
I think it was Rocco,
deserves a raise. You think it was Rocco?
Yeah.
The name of the bar?
Rocco. Yeah, Rocco's the guy.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. We're going to widen this conversation a little bit because the SEC, as dominant as they've been in college baseball, it's really all sports. And I want to take a look at this year specifically and what the SEC was able to do across the major sports in the NCAA. We'll get to that coming up next. Jake Lyman and Connor Newt were in for Jared Stillman today here on Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. That was the call from Wednesday night as LSU came back, tied it on that play. A line drive to left. The left fielder slips. Ball rolls into the corner. Tied at 5. Jared Jones wins it just a couple of pitches later. LSU advancing to face Coastal Carolina in the College World Series Championship. Best of 3 starting tomorrow. Jake Lyman, Connor Newt filling in for Jared Stillman today on this Fireball Hot Take Friday on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. We'd love to hear from you. You can text or call 615-737-1025. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. I want to expand our conversation here beyond college baseball. And this was actually Connor's idea to look at the SEC and how dominant it's become in college sports. And we talk about the Power 2 and the SEC and the Big Ten and how close it is. And we're going to get called SEC biased because we always do when we talk about how dominant the SEC is.
That one Big Ten guy is going to come
right. It's, the SEC.
Look at the last 2 national champions.
Which is a point I'm going to make here.
Yeah.
Because it was a dominant year from the SEC. You look at at basketball. Men's basketball had 2 SEC teams in the Final Four, and Florida wins the national championship. Women's basketball, 2 teams in the Final Four. UConn did win the national championship, but South Carolina played for it. Baseball, you had 2 of the final 3 teams standing in the College World Series. LSU could end up winning the national championship. It is funny to say that the only big sport that the SEC didn't have a team playing for the national championship was football.
Yeah.
It was Ohio State and Notre Dame.
And think about how many teams from the basketball and baseball perspective actually got in. You know, men's basketball gets 14 in. Women's, correct me if I'm wrong, Jake, 10?
I think you're right, 10, yes. It was kind of a have and have not 10 in the SEC. Baseball had 13.
Yep. I mean, it just dominant.
Right. The SEC, I've said this before, like in football, at the very least, the Big Ten, the top of the Big Ten can compete with the top of the SEC.
Sure.
Like if you made an 8-team playoff bracket and put your top 4 teams from the SEC, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, and Texas, and you put them on one side, and then in the Big Ten, you took Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, and just did a 8-team bracket. I don't know how that would turn out. A Big Ten team could win it, an SEC team could win it. But in pretty much every other sport, it does feel like the SEC is just head and shoulders above everybody else.
It is. And honestly, I don't know if that gap is going to close across all sports. It's closing a little bit in football. You're seeing more Big Ten, some independent.
I mean, the last 2 champions, Ohio State and Michigan, you can't take that away from the Big Ten that they've won the last 2 national championships.
Right. And you had 2 Big Ten teams in the final last year, or the semifinals.
Right. Yes. Penn State
and Ohio State.
Yep. Texas was the only SEC team that made it to the Final Four. Yep. And honestly, they went down to the wire, went to overtime with Arizona State. Like there was a chance that not a single SEC team made the college football semifinal. That was a great game. I was
here.
That was kind of my draft crush on Cam Scattaboo after that game. Cause I mean, he was unstoppable. He was splitting out wide, catching go balls down the sideline.
That was my God, Quinn Ewers is not a good quarterback game.
Yeah, that might have been the NFL's Quinn Ewers is not a good
I think
game.
That was the game most people fell in love with Matthew Golden too.
Right. Yeah. But to get back on the point here is that Texas almost didn't make the semifinal. So I think a lot of people talk about how the SEC is the standard in football. They're up there, but the SEC is 100% the standard in all of the other major sports, including softball too, if you want to count. I mean,
Oklahoma is granted all their titles were won in the Big 12, but they're freaking dynasty.
And then Texas won it this year. So it's like, those teams haven't been SEC for long, but they are now. And that gap is only going to continue to widen.
Right. I think football is probably the only sport you could argue against that gap is kind of closing a little bit. The Big Ten, I mean, you have these powerhouse. Oregon is a powerhouse team. Ohio State just won the national championship. Michigan had a down year last year, but
they beat Alabama
and they will take that to their deathbeds.
Well, they also beat Ohio State. So
they did.
Michigan fans, even though it was obviously a drop off from winning the national championship, I don't think you can be all that unhappy with that season.
Yeah. And I think NIL is part of the reason that the gap is kind of closing, especially in football.
Yeah.
I don't want to say closing, but
I'm wondering how the revenue sharing affects the SEC's gap in other sports.
Right.
Like, I think football is always going to be somewhat close because the Big Ten does make a lot of money. In fact, the Big Ten makes more money than the SEC from their TV deal, right?
Yeah, their CBS deal is ridiculous.
So, like, I think that will be close. I'm wondering if revenue sharing helps or hurts the SEC in the secondary tier sports, basketball, women's basketball, baseball, softball. Because
you look at the ratings this year for SEC basketball, some of the top games of the season were SEC matchups.
Yeah.
Kentucky and Tennessee. You had Alabama and Auburn. Now, granted, these are all, top 10 matchups, but you still had, like, Missouri was up there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just basketball. I think everyone talks about football and how deep the SEC is. They may be even deeper in basketball.
Well, and everybody was taking their victory laps when SEC basketball struggled a little bit in the tournament the last couple of years.
Then they won the national championship, and then it all went away.
Right. You get two teams into the Final Four, and no one really starts to question it anymore. And Florida obviously takes the championship. I just don't know if the money being sent out to these players is going to increase or decrease with revenue sharing in these sports, because I think men's basketball probably will be about the same because they're getting 15%. I don't think it's going to change that much. There will be brand deals and sponsorships for these men's basketball players, but baseball is the one that intrigues me the most.
I'm very curious about that
because baseball isn't even when they break down these, 75% goes to football, 15% to men's basketball, 5% to women's basketball, and then it's 5% to other sports.
Yeah.
So baseball's not even getting a full 5%. Those are bigger rosters. I'm wondering if some of these schools that have invested into baseball are going to be able to continue to invest into baseball.
Right. And baseball is kind of a weird sport in the scholarship sense, in that most of those players don't get full rides right out of high school.
And I think did I see today they might be changing that they're going to cut the roster to 34, but all of them are going to get full ride scholarships. I might have seen that somewhere.
You may be right, which is great for baseball. I love that guys are getting opportunities like that to go full ride to play college baseball. But
yes, according to Google, starting in the 2025-26 season, college baseball will move from an equivalency sport with 11.7 scholarships to a headcount sport where every player on the roster may earn a full scholarship. So the D1 scholarship limit will move from 11.7 to 34 for NCAA purposes. So that is big, but it also might even the playing field a little bit too.
Yeah. Well, baseball
actually,
is weird.
I'm kind of disagreeing with myself in my head, because maybe some players might not go to an LSU because they had too many scholarship players already, and instead go somewhere where they can get a full ride. Now that's not an issue. So maybe instead of evening the field, it might actually make the disparity a little bit bigger.
Baseball is the weirdest sport, man. Like, baseball is that one sport where it's not usually the best team that wins it. It's the hottest.
Right.
So I'm curious how this revenue sharing thing will impact that, because you can get, obviously on paper, the best roster possible. But at the end of the day, look at Coastal Carolina.
Right.
They're the hottest team in baseball right
now. You play your best baseball down the stretch. Who knows what can happen?
Right.
Let's go to our phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Our friend Kenny the mailman wants to chime in. Kenny, good afternoon. What you got for us?
Good friends. How are y'all doing?
Doing well.
Doing great.
You know what? This may very well be my most favorite Jared Stillman segment. I like the hosts.
Listen, we appreciate it.
I think what's happening is super logical, because if you look at it, not only did the SEC add teams, they added the super wealthy. And the super wealthy challenged the wealthy teams already in the conference. Texas A&M is not going to get out and spent by Texas. Florida and Tennessee is going to start raising money now. It's becoming an arms race with money, and they're not going to be left behind, which sort of zooms the results for the whole conference up. So it's almost a money issue, this growing of the conference. I never really liked it. It's they're not going to do anything because we don't like it, but that bringing the money in has been a super, super influence. And it's not a surprise, the results. It's like somebody saying, well, did you know 10 of the top 15 most expensive homes are in Belmead? Well, duh. That's where the money is. So I think this is more a reaction of the money and players that wasn't even looking maybe to the South. But if you double what you're going to get in NIL, it's like, oh, yeah, I'll go to Ole Miss now. They are recruiting in football like they've never recruited before, and it's not because they've suddenly become just a great place to be. It's okay. They're paying the dough. So I think this is a money issue. Y'all have a great, great day.
You
Bye-bye.
too, Kenny. Thanks for the call.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Kenny.
I mean, I think that's kind of where college sports has been heading for a while, is that quote unquote recruiting isn't as important anymore. Like, we always like to talk in terms of the college football video game of like, oh, you got to sell them on this and the academics
Send that house, baby.
and oh, it's a great college town and all that kind of stuff. I just don't think that's part of it.
Yeah.
Like, players do want to go somewhere that they like to be. No one's going to go somewhere that they don't like, but money is a big, big, big part of it.
And he made a great point as far as the SEC is concerned. SEC just added two of the biggest brands in college football that have probably two of the largest bank accounts in Texas and Oklahoma.
And you look at what Texas did in their first year across the board. They went to the Final Four in football. Men's basketball, they made the NCAA tournament.
Won their bubble game.
Women's basketball, they went to the Final Four. Baseball, they were the number 2 overall seed.
Yeah.
So, and then softball won the national championship. So, Texas had a great first year in the SEC. Oklahoma was fine. Football wasn't great.
They made the tournament.
They made
basketball.
Right. They made the tournament in both men's and women's basketball. Like, there were some good things from Oklahoma, but Texas really came in, and the SEC already was at a certain level, but I think Texas is a huge addition for this conference in terms of competing with the Big Ten, because the Big Ten, Oregon is great in football. They're okay in a lot of other things. Washington wasn't that great in football this year.
Yeah.
USC.
USC.
USC hasn't been a power in a while, even with Caleb Williams. Yeah, they were close to making the college football playoff, but they blew it. And UCLA is UCLA football right now. So right now, the SEC is winning in the expansion game. I know that's not a groundbreaking take, but I think there's a long way to go in that too, as we talked about a couple of weeks ago in terms of what a super league would look like in college football. I think there's a long way to go. Clemson and Florida State are still big names to be had out there. There are some other schools, so long way to go. But the SEC obviously is the winner.
Look at Tom.
Oh, wow.
Tom Brady is coming out to Cody Rhodes' entrance right now, ripping Eli Manning's jersey, and I believe Eli Manning is going to come out and attack him in full WWE style. This is great.
Oh, there it is.
There he is.
Yeah, I mean, Tom Brady, he's enjoying retirement. You can tell.
And we are enjoying that he is retired.
Yes, I think all NFL fans are, outside of Foxborough and the Tampa St. Pete area. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We're talking SEC, just in general, about how dominant this conference has been across the board in sports, as I guess Monday, at the very least, wraps up the academic year of 2024-2025. It was a great year for the SEC. We'd love to hear from you. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. You can text or call our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Jake Lyman, Connor Newt, we're in for Jared Stillman on this Fireball Hot Take Friday here on Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Fireball Hot Take Friday. Jake Lyman, Connor Newt filling in for Jared Stillman today. Jared will be back on Monday for his usual time, 2 to 6. We're into the SEC here as the SEC looks for its 6th straight college baseball national championship, 6 in a row. And, there wasn't a tournament during COVID, so this dates back to 2018. It has been 7 years since a team outside of the Southeastern Conference has won a college baseball national championship. And again, Arkansas was 1 out away from winning that year. LSU has a chance to extend it against Coastal Carolina this weekend. Should be a fun series with game 1 coming up tomorrow. Connor, do you think we're far from a year where the SEC sweeps the major sports? Like, I think it could happen in the next couple of years where the SEC wins football, men's basketball, women's basketball, baseball, and softball. You look at it this year, they only missed 2 if LSU wins this weekend, and South Carolina was in the national championship game against UConn women's basketball.
I think the best way to answer that question would be to look at the primetime players in each respective sport. I mean, football, right now, if you were to ask me who in the SEC is capable of winning a national championship, I'd say Georgia, Bama, Texas. That might be it of those 3. Maybe LSU.
Yeah, LSU would be kind of on the borderline there. And then you've got kind of the outskirts of like dark horses. We talked about this on Tuesday with Frazier, that like a Florida or a South Carolina, if everything went right, they could find themselves as, maybe a top 8 seed in the college football playoff.
Then in basketball, as far as players, you got Kentucky, Auburn, Alabama, Florida.
You got to put Tennessee in there.
Tennessee, yeah. Baseball, you have LSU, Arkansas, Tennessee,
Vanderbilt.
I mean, Kentucky has been teetering in and out of that conversation.
I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it does feel like every single year it's the SEC versus the world. Like, is the SEC going to win it in this sport, or is it going to be somebody else? And a lot of teams do challenge the SEC, but in terms of just straight up depth across the board, and this goes on to other sports too. Like, the ACC does still have a pretty firm hold over soccer. Like, they have the big soccer schools of Duke and North Carolina. Yeah, lacrosse is a lot of those East Coast schools. I mean,
the Big Ten dominates hockey.
The SEC doesn't even have lacrosse, I don't think, like men's or women's, because Vandy women's lacrosse plays in the American. Yeah. So the SEC doesn't care about that kind of sport. But like, soccer is still a North Carolina-centric sport, and like Florida State's always really good. But the major sports that are on TV all the time, it's all SEC.
Yeah. I mean, you look, even soccer, women's soccer, you go on the SEC network, you're probably finding a good game.
Right. And that's the SEC, even in the sports that maybe historically they haven't been great in, they're catching up.
Yeah.
Because the money trickles down. Like, yeah, it started with football, but then it was like, oh, we're really good at football. Let's be really good at men's basketball too. And then women's basketball and so on and so forth. And
it's fun to watch.
It is. It is. And I know, again.
And I know you say that as an ACC man.
I grew up watching ACC sports, and the downfall of ACC men's basketball, I'd love it. Our question of the day on Tuesday was, what was something that you want a documentary on? I would love a documentary on the downfall of ACC men's basketball.
I mean, it's kind of Duke versus the world right now, isn't it?
Well, it went from so deep, even like 7 years ago.
We had the whole guard of Krzyzewski, Roy Williams.
And maybe it is the simple question of all the coaches left.
Yeah.
But I think it's just it is a money thing too, right?
Do you think the worst SEC basketball program would fare well in the ACC?
I think they'd be middle of the pack. I mean, the ACC was
if we were to put South Carolina in the ACC last year.
The ACC was horrible last year. Yeah. South Carolina blew out Virginia Tech in the non-conference.
Yeah.
The Hokies were a middle of the pack team in the ACC. So the ACC,
they wouldn't beat Duke. They wouldn't
no,
beat North
no,
Carolina.
they wouldn't win the ACC, but I think they would be a top half of the ACC team.
Yeah. Which says a lot about the SEC.
Well, it says a lot about the ACC too, because you
Yeah.
look back 2018, 2019, when you had Duke was obviously still good. That was like the Zion Williamson, RJ Barrett years. UNC was still a power with, I guess, was Baycott in school already because he was there for 7 years.
Caleb Love,
RJ Davis, who finally left. But it wasn't just the Blue Bloods. Miami was really good under Larraniega. They went to a Final Four.
Yeah.
Florida State was really good under Leonard Hamilton. You had the year where Josh Pastner and Georgia Tech won the ACC. Tony Bennett was leading Virginia to 1 seeds all the time. You
won
were
a
seeing
national championship with them.
It was typically like 8 to 10 ACC teams were making the tournament, and a lot of them would have deep runs. But now it's like 4 ACC teams are making the tournament, and 2 of them are usually on the bubble.
Right. I mean, last year it was Duke. Carolina was on the bubble.
Louisville was in.
Clemson was in.
Was that it?
Yeah. And 3 of the 4 lost in the first round.
Right. And Duke went to the national championship game, but
no,
they went to the Final Four. Yes, lost to Houston. But that the ACC, I think that's a documentary that needs to be told of how did the ACC go from the true power of men's college basketball for decades to,
I mean, they used to be the best conference in basketball.
An afterthought.
Yeah. Like now I'm just thinking about Louisville. Louisville used to be really good under Pitino. Like it was a battle every year.
Syracuse under Boeheim.
Yeah.
Like there's
Pitt was competitive.
Pitt was good. Like I understand that the documentary could be very short. It could be the SEC got way more money than us and all of the great coaches retired. The end. But I think there is a story there of just how the ACC in a 5-year span went from the top of the country to 3rd or 4th best conference.
Yeah. What's a better basketball conference? The ACC or the Big Ten?
It's tough.
I think they're both pretty. I mean, look at the Big Ten. You got Purdue.
Yeah.
Michigan, occasionally. Ohio State sometimes.
Yeah. Iowa's usually
Oregon is solid.
Yeah, Oregon's good.
Iowa is all right sometimes. That's about it.
Right. I mean, the SEC, their takeover of men's basketball has been quick.
Yeah.
It's been really quick. But all the best players want to play in the Southeastern Conference now. Matthew from Jolton on our text line,
who is back there,
sitting back there, says his Fireball hot take Friday take of the year. Michigan will win the national championship this year with true freshman Bryce Underwood under center. I think Underwood's going to be good. I don't know about national championship good.
I think you're drinking the blue and maize Kool-Aid there, son.
I do want to talk a little bit about SEC versus Big Ten football to wrap up this conversation coming up next, because we could have maybe the game of the year in week 1.
Oh, and yeah.
I think it could be a big data point in terms of SEC versus Big Ten in football. So we'll talk about that coming up next. Wrap up this conversation. Jake Lyman, Connor Newt. We are in for Jared Stillman today here on this Fireball Hot Take Friday. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, The Game, finishing up hour number 3 on this Friday. Jake Lyman and Connor Newt in for Jared Stillman today. Again, Jared will be back usual time on Monday at 2. We're talking about the SEC and just the dominant run that they've been on the last couple of years across all sports. During the break, we were looking, I was mentioning how the ACC fell off in men's basketball so far and so fast. In 2019, the ACC had 3 of the 4 1 seeds in the NCAA tournament. And this past year, they had 4 teams in the tournament total. So in 6 years, they've gone from the best conference in college basketball to, 3rd, 4th.
Yeah. And we also, thanks to a texter on a text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, not figured out, but we remember the SEC probably has the best coaches in basketball too. I mean, you have Bruce Pearl, Nate Oates, Rick Barnes, Mark Pope, John Calipari.
You're just trying to slip Mark Pope in there, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah. Just slipping the guy that made the Sweet 16 in his first year with a full transfer portal team. Just trying to slip him in. They just raised in their practice facility, I saw during the break, they put up a banner and it says number 9, the journey. They're going for it.
I mean, right. Coaches is a big part of this, but coaches also goes back to money. So it's a money thing. Like and that's what everything in college sports is going to be. Follow the money and you'll find out where the good teams are. The ACC they did a poor job with their media rights deal. And you've seen the effects of that on football and men's basketball over the last 5 to 10 years.
Or haven't seen because they're never on TV.
Right. They're on the CW. Right after reruns of One Tree Hill.
At 3:30 Central Time.
Yeah, having to find the CW is...
I don't know if I even have the CW.
You do.
I used to watch it.
I think it's pretty much a basic cable channel. So I think everybody can find it, but you might not know where to. I did want to mention week 1, Texas, Ohio State.
Oh, it's going to be so good.
Not that a week 1 game decides anything. There's so much time to change your season. And I don't really know if the committee is going to look at a week 1 game as a major data point, especially if it's a close game.
Yeah.
Like if Ohio State blows out Texas, that's a huge win for them. But if it's close, I don't know how much of a difference it's going to make. But the SEC Big Ten rivalry is going to be a fun one. And it starts right off the bat with one of the best games we'll see all season.
A lot of storylines in it, too. I mean, it is obviously game day. So Lee Corso will be saying his goodbyes.
Right.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Sort of. I'll probably cry, but I love Lee Corso. But I mean, the defending national champions coming and hosting Texas, who is arguably the best team in the SEC this year on paper.
Arch Manning.
Has a lot to prove.
As the full-time starter.
Yeah.
Is it Julian Sayin is the starting quarterback for Ohio State this year?
Yes.
Who
flipped from an SEC school.
Right.
He was an Alabama commit. Or was he Georgia? It was a red team.
Yes. Red SEC team.
That narrows it down.
That's going to be a really fun game. I hate that it's at noon. I really do. But it might be better because you get a chance to see some other games.
This is my hot take. I'm okay with it being at noon because it stretches out the day.
I guess.
Week 1.
What are the other late games that day?
Kentucky plays at night, so that's just a me thing.
Right. I guess, it depends on when you want your team to play. Virginia Tech plays on Sunday.
Yeah. That's just a me thing. But I think there's a good primetime game.
Week 1 is always good. Like, there's never...
Is it Notre Dame playing someone?
That sounds right. So...
Maybe Clemson?
Early games, yes. 11 a.m. Central Time, Texas, Ohio State. Alabama, Florida State at 2:30.
I mean, Florida State's
always talented.
Where? In Tallahassee?
Yes. Doak Campbell.
Okay.
And then the late game, LSU Clemson. That's going to be a great one, too.
Yeah, I knew it was Clemson.
So this is it is going to be a fun week 1, but I always hate the best game of the day being on at noon.
Sure.
Like, I would say if I was to format that perfectly, put Alabama, Florida State at noon, Then LSU Clemson is your 3:30 game, and then primetime Texas Ohio State.
Look at the text line.
Well said.
Great point. Someone has texted in the word beer. Thank you.
Well done.
I'm motivated.
Matthew from Jolton
Again.
putting out the big SEC versus Big Ten games this year. Texas at Ohio State obviously is the big one. Wisconsin, Alabama, like we saw that last year at Wisconsin. It wasn't really a good game.
Yeah.
I'm not really expecting all that much from the Badgers, especially without their defensive back that went to Miami.
Yeah.
Unless they can pull him back out. And then Michigan at Oklahoma. That could be a fun game. Oklahoma, they weren't very good last year. But then again, neither was Michigan for most of the year. So,
and this is week 1, not week 0. Week 0,
right. Week 0. Do we have any games that are all that interesting week 0?
Farmageddon is week 0.
Is that Iowa State, Kansas State?
Yes, sir.
That's a noon game too. That's in Dublin. That's the Dublin game. And then Stanford at Hawaii, if you want to stay up. Oh, wait, it's only a 6:30 kick.
Oh, yeah.
Usually that Hawaii first week 0 game is like
locally
11 p.m.
Vanderbilt played at Hawaii. It was like a 9:30 kick or something like that.
Yeah, so week 0, not that exciting, but week 1's going to be good. And that SEC Big Ten matchup is Texas, Ohio State, going to be fun, even though it is an 11 a.m. kick.
It's going to be a good one. I'm excited for football. My team's going to suck, but I'm excited.
We're what, like just over 60 days away now?
We're not going to play the final countdown.
No, we won't. That's a Chase and Big Joe thing.
But
we're a little over 2 months away.
We are. And then we're about 3 weeks away from the game, which gives just the right amount of taste.
Nice little lead up.
It's good. We're in the good times.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you want to chime in, you can text or call. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. One texter, 8881, says week 1 or week 0, just for clarification. Naming scheme is dumb. Yeah. I mean,
week 0 doesn't really serve much of a purpose. I guess it gives you a little bit of a taste of college football, but they're never good games.
I think it's mostly for people who want to bet on college football again. Because
last year you had Georgia Tech and Florida State, and that was a good game.
And that was exciting because Florida State was expected to blow them out. And then it was like New Mexico.
It was like New Mexico and Montana State or
something like that. So you'll get your little taste of college football in week 0, but August 30th is the first full Saturday of college football. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Final hour of the program coming up next. We're going to dive into the NBA Finals after Indiana was able to force Game 7 last night. First Game 7 since 2016. We'll get into that and maybe have a conversation. What are some of the best Game 7s ever across all of sports?
My dad's going to be so excited.
I know. This is a Rick Newt special.
Rick Newt
came up with this topic. 615-737-1025. Jake Lyman, Connor Newt in for Jared Stillman today here on Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063. The Game, presented by Southern Bank of Tennessee, your bank for small business. Final hour on this Fireball Hot Take Friday. Jake Lyman and Connor Newt in for Jared Stillman today. David Reed behind the glass. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Wrapping up the show today, looking at Game 7 of the NBA Finals. And I'll get the question out there now so we can get some responses. Connor's dad had the question of
he's very excited
of
about
a
this.
topic here.
I don't know if he's listening, but he's very excited.
What is the best championship Game 7 ever? I didn't say before the break championship Game 7. So I'm not talking about like an ALCS Game 7 or an Eastern Conference Finals Game 7. Got to be for the title. Winner takes it all. Loser goes home. What's the best one? MLB, NHL, NBA. So we'll put the question out there, 615-737-1025. If you have an answer for us, you can text or call. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We'll get to that a little bit later. But Game 7, Pacers and Thunder coming up on Sunday. First NBA Game 7 since the famous 2016 Game 7, where LeBron and the Cavs erased a 3-1 deficit, came back and won. Blocked by James. Kyrie Irving hit the 3. One of those games everybody remembers. And I just remember how excited the sports world was for that game.
Yeah.
And I do feel some excitement, but I think it's more just because it's a Game 7.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel the same as some of the other Game 7s we've had in the past. Like, mentioned the Warriors, Cavs won. Heat Spurs back in, was that 2013?
Yep.
Back out to Allen. The Mike Breen double bang, the first one we got. And then back in 2010, Celtics-Lakers with Kobe and the big three for Boston. So
I was little.
I don't know if it's the teams and maybe there isn't just a bona fide superstar. Maybe it's just the NBA isn't quite as big as it used to be. But it does feel like there isn't quite as much buzz around this one as the previous NBA Game 7s.
I mean, all things considered, it has been an enjoyable series.
It has been. I have watched a lot of it.
As someone who doesn't really watch the NBA regularly or follow it as much as I used to, it has been an enjoyable series. But to your point, I think there's not a lot of buzz around it because I don't think the NBA is as mainstream as it used to be anymore.
Yeah.
I think, obviously, it's a football country. We'll get more into that later. But I think the NBA has just kind of buried itself in a roundabout way. I think their lack of effort, lack of defense, it's very, very offensive style of play now.
Yeah.
And this is the only league you'll see that. Watch college basketball. Every possession is, life or death as far as effort. The NBA just doesn't have that. Now I expect them to play with that tomorrow or Sunday because it's Game 7. There's a lot of desperation. They want to win a championship, etc. But as far as the regular season and even some of the playoffs, I don't care as much.
Well, it is funny. I'm looking back at these previous Game 7s for a championship, like finals Game 7s, and nobody ever gets to 100 points in these games because the teams are playing defense. You have to go all the way back to 1988 to find the last finals Game 7 where either team eclipsed 100 points.
Celtics, Lakers.
That was Lakers, Pistons.
That's right.
That's
right. Bad boys.
The one that made me laugh was Spurs, Pistons, 2005. Final of that game was 81-74.
That's a college basketball score.
Right. And I can guarantee both teams are going to get over 100 points.
It'll be like 110-108 or something like that.
And the Thunder historically are maybe one of the best defensive teams ever by a lot of these metrics, but the Pacers might be one of the better offensive teams too. I am excited because it is a Game 7. We don't get Game 7s in any sports all that often.
Yeah.
This is the first NBA Game 7.
I was really hoping for a Stanley Cup Game 7.
I think that would have been great. We did get one last year.
Yes.
With the Panthers winning after blowing a 3-0 lead in that series. But that was the first NHL Game 7 since 2019. And in baseball, 2019 is the last time we got a World Series Game 7 when the Nationals beat the Astros.
That's right. That was a fun series.
I
do remember that.
That Nationals run was great.
Well, that was literally the year Bryce Harper left for the Phillies.
Right.
So that was the Juan Soto, Trey Turner.
Right. And Howie Kendrick, he had a home run in Game 5 against the Dodgers in the NLDS, and then he hit one off the foul pole against Garrett Cole in Game 7.
They had such a deep pitching staff, too.
They
Max
did.
Scherzer, Steven Strasburg was on that team.
Yeah. That was a really fun stretch, and we haven't gotten Game 7s. Like before last year and that Panthers-Oilers Game 7, there had not been a Game 7 in any of these sports since pre-COVID. So I'm excited because we get a Game 7, but it just doesn't seem to have that juice of the previous you know what it is? It's just faces. Like Shea is the MVP,
right.
But is he a household name where you go up to somebody who doesn't watch basketball and say, do you know who Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is? The answer is probably no.
Yeah.
Same with Tyrese Halliburton. But in 2016, if you went up to any random person on the street and said, you know who LeBron James and Steph Curry are? I think the answer would have been yes.
Have you seen this stuff on people will go up to people on outside of Madison Square Garden and they'll be like, hey, who's a better all-time New York Knick, Tyler Hero or Randy Orton? It's hilarious.
I love the guy who goes to a bunch of games and he asks Die Hard or bandwagon, and they all say Die Hard, of course. And it's
where'd Shea play college?
Yeah, where did Dak Prescott go to college? And none of them know.
That guy and the guy that goes to baseball games and heckles, but in a nice way,
a funny way. He yelled at Riley Green, I bet you've never released your inhibitions and felt the rain on your skin or something like that.
Bum.
But it is having these just household names. Back to the Spurs were a little different because it was a dynasty, and it was like Tim Duncan was a household name.
Well, even Greg Popovich.
I think it was more Pop than it was any of the players on the floor. But you had the big three for the Heat with Wade and James and Bosh. And that was their first one, right?
Yes.
Because they had lost to the Mavericks.
No,
it was their second one. They won in 2012, and then Game 7 was 2013.
They beat the
Thunder. That was, they beat KD and
with
the Thunder.
Durant and Harden and Westbrook.
Right. So this was their second one. And then back to the 2010 one, Garnett, Pierce, Allen, Rajon Rondo for the Celtics. And then the Lakers, you had obviously Kobe, Pau Gasol. There were household names. I think that's maybe why we're not getting as much of a spotlight on this one.
It's kind of harder to follow these players because, I don't know, maybe it's because they one and done is more prominent than it was 10 years ago.
Right.
So these players, you don't really get to know them much in college, and then they go off into the NBA and you still don't really know much. Like Jalen Williams, I couldn't tell you anything about him.
He went to Santa Clara.
Oh, great.
I think you're right that a lot of the stars in this, they weren't number one picks.
Right.
If the stars of these teams were Zion Williamson and Victor Wembanyama, I think a lot more people would be paying attention because we heard about these guys all the way through high school, college, France for Wembanyama, obviously, and when they were drafted number one. But Shea was a mid-first round pick, lottery pick.
I mean, Kentucky fans obviously know about him.
Right. But
Tyrese Halliburton played at Iowa State.
Right.
I can't say I watched too much Iowa State basketball.
All of these guys who are starring, they were lottery picks, but they weren't these super hyped prospects who were stars coming in. So that's probably part of it too. I think I hope it's going to be a good game, I should say. I'm a little worried. I'm a little worried the Thunder are going to blow them out.
Yeah. That's been the thing though. Like the Thunder have either blown a team, or they've either won close or they've gotten blown out.
You want every series to go 7, but it would kind of suck that Game 6 was a blowout, and then if Game 7 is a blowout, it's the series went 7, but there wasn't really a moment.
Right.
So we'll see what happens on Sunday.
Except for Pascal Siakam rolling his eyes back like the Undertaker.
Yeah, well, yes, and his
That play, I watched that live.
His poster.
Ridiculous. First off, it was a ridiculous pass.
Yes.
It was a chest pass from Halliburton, but he spun in the process.
Well, he also does that to be a little bit dramatic, I think.
Does,
but
it was still cool.
Great play. Great play. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We want to hear from you. What do you think is the greatest championship Game 7 of all time? World Series, Stanley Cup Finals, NBA Finals. Which one stands out to you? You can text or call. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Jake Lyman and Connor Newt sitting in for Jared Stillman today. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Jared out today. Jake Lyman, Connor Newt filling in. Wrapping up the show here with some talk about Game 7s, as we've got one coming up on Sunday. We asked you, what is the greatest Game 7 for championship of all time? So you can go World Series, you could go Stanley Cup Finals, you could go NBA Finals, lots of good options. We'd love to hear from you. Again, 615-737-1025. You can text or call. Before we get into that, though, I do want to give props to the Pacers because pretty much this entire postseason, I've been saying, well, they won that one, but they won't win the next one. And they continue to fight back. I thought last night it was over with Halliburton not being 100%, and the Thunder had just gotten a couple of huge momentum-building wins. I thought the series was over, and they dominated.
Right. It seems like they have a new but a new player step up every single game. Like
anybody could be the best player on any given night.
Like last night, it was Siakam. We've seen Benedict Mathurin step up. We've seen
Aaron Nesmith, Vandy legend.
Tyrese Halliburton's obviously been solid throughout the series. They just have
Obi Toppin's had his moments.
Yeah, he has. They just have, I don't know if depth is the right way to put it, but they just have some sort of drive where, someone is going to step up for them no matter the situation.
Right. I thought it was over when in game 4, they blew that 10-point lead in the fourth quarter. That was, as soon as the Thunder came back and tied the series at 2, you blew it on your own home floor. I thought it was over, and I didn't think there was any chance the Pacers could get it to 7. But I said the same thing when they were playing the Knicks. I thought the Knicks were going to beat them. I thought the Cavs were going to beat them. But the Bucks series in round 1 could have gone either way. But the Pacers, if they do finish this off and win in Oklahoma City on Sunday to take the championship, it is one of the greatest postseason runs of all time.
Sure. I mean, they've been underdogs in pretty much every series they've played.
Right. The Cavaliers had an amazing season, and they upset them. Then the Knicks, who just beat the Celtics, and, New York fans thought they were finally going to go back to the NBA Finals for the first time in 30-something years, and the Pacers took care of them pretty easily.
Yeah.
And now the Thunder, who they won 68 games this year. Like, OKC is not only the best team in the league this year, they've been one of the best teams we've seen since those Warriors dynasties.
Yeah.
And here they have them. Game 7, backs against the wall. I don't think they're going to win on Sunday, but if they do, I think this Pacers team does need to be heralded as one of the most unexpected championships of all time.
They're scrappy. That's for sure. They're one of the few teams that gets back on defense, I will say.
Yeah.
Like they're fun to watch.
Even though they're known for their offense. This Thunder team, I think, is too good to lose on their home floor with everything on the line. I mean, you look at all of the options that they have, and Shea and Jalen Williams can put up 70 combined on any given night. But the Pacers, it is funny to look back at some of these wins that they've had where the odds tell you it's a 99.8% chance they lose, and they find a way to do it. So even though I think the Thunder are the better team, and I think the Thunder probably win on Sunday, I think I've kind of learned not to bet against the Pacers.
Right.
Because they find a way to win when everyone thinks they can't.
I mean, I'm fine either way, honestly. The Thunder would be their first championship as the Thunder. The Pacers, it would be their first championship ever.
Period.
So I'm fine either way. There's no, I mean, I guess you could say the Pacers are the underdog. They've had the underdog story, but there's no I don't have any, animosity towards either. I'm okay with either winning.
I really do just hope we get a good game. The only other game 7 this year, I guess I can find that in here.
In hockey.
There were
2
game 7s, 3 game 7s in the playoffs so far this year.
Ottawa.
But 2 of them were in the first round. No, I'm saying NBA.
Oh, okay.
But the last game 7 in this playoffs was Thunder Nuggets, and the Thunder won that game by 32. Yeah. I'm hoping we don't get a repeat of that, because we mentioned it. These other game 7s in the NBA Finals, they're instant classics. Like, everybody remembers the 3 moments from the last 3 game 7s.
Yeah.
Blocked by James. I mean, that's one everyone's going to remember, the chase down block on Iguodala. Back out to Allen. He hits the 3 to help beat the Spurs for the Heat. And then Kevin Garnett post-game in the game 7 win over the Lakers. Anything is possible. Like, the last 3 NBA game 7s have given us 3 historic moments. I don't know if we can really expect that on Sunday, but it's possible.
Our friend Sean Mark has texted me on my personal text
Oh,
line
what you got?
to let us know that OKC is coached by Gator basketball great Billy Donovan.
Oh, still.
Still.
No, he's not. Mark Daignault, something like that. Is the name of their.
No, Billy Donovan is a Chicago Bull.
Yes. He's in the Windy City now.
Yes.
But he was the head coach of the Oklahoma City Thunder. Quickly, before we get to best game sevens in the next segment, we did talk about how the NFL is king among the big four sports. I don't know. I think pretty clearly about 10 years ago, it was the NBA and number two. I don't know if that's the case anymore. I think the other three, NHL, NBA, MLB, I think it's all kind of jumbled together.
Yeah. I mean, if I thought about it, Dad and I were talking about this last night. Like, in terms of what makes the best game seven overall.
I think it's hockey.
Really?
Yeah.
I think it's baseball.
Baseball's up there too. I would say in terms of game seven, the NBA is definitely last because each possession doesn't mean as much in a basketball game as it does where every pitch in a baseball game matters. And a goal in a hockey game is massive. A run in a baseball game is massive. Each possession early on in an NBA game isn't really that important.
Yeah. Whereas baseball, every single pitch is important.
Right. It's a chess game.
Yeah. There's so much strategy that goes into baseball, especially in a game seven setting, that just makes it so much fun to watch. And I think that's why it's my favorite. Like, game seven of the World Series, assuming we ever get another one, which we will eventually.
Yeah.
Unmatched.
Yeah.
In terms of strategy.
I don't really care what the ratings nerds would say because I guess, the NBA would probably be the highest rated out of those three. But I do think there is something special about a Stanley Cup Finals Game 7 and a World Series Game 7. NBA is great, but I just think the way the games are played, Game 7s in hockey and baseball are just so much more intense.
Yeah. Oh, hockey is definitely, like, I go back to 2019, the Blues and the Bruins.
Right.
Hell of a series, first of all. The Blues were such an underdog, similar to the Pacers. Like, they weren't supposed to make the playoff, and then they got hot at the right time and ended up winning the whole thing. That game, I mean, that was a 4-1 game, but I think I look back to what that game meant for the Blues. I was actually cheering for the Blues that night. I don't know why, but I was. But that
St. Louis brothers, Cardinals fan.
Yeah. But that game that series made so many stars. Like, Jordan Bennington came into his own that series. Who was on that team? Paul Stastny was on that team. He was already an established guy for St. Louis, but that was just a fun time. Hockey in general, playoff hockey, there's a certain energy that playoff hockey has that, like, you're not going to find that anywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know exactly in terms of overall landscape where those three sports would fall in under the NFL, but I think it's pretty clear in game sevens, I would much rather watch World Series Stanley Cup Final Game 7 over an NBA Game 7. But I'm not going to complain because it is the two greatest words in sports, Game 7, and we will get it Sunday between the Thunder and the Pacers. What is the best championship Game 7 of all time? We will talk about it a little bit next. We'd love to hear from you. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. You can text or call our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Jake Lyman and Connor Newt were in for Jared Stillman today. Stillman & Company, 1025-1063 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Just a couple segments left on this Fireball Hot Take Friday. Jake Lyman, Connor Newt filling in for Jared Stillman. Jared will be back on Monday at 2. We've asked the question, what is the best Game 7 in a championship series all time? So World Series, Stanley Cup Finals, NBA Finals, what is the best one? 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you'd like to text or call. Matt from Camden on our text line says 2016 Cubs Indians.
Ugh, we don't talk about that one.
Why?
Because it's the Cubs.
Oh, I was happy for that Cubs team.
I hate the Cubs.
I mean,
it's okay.
That Cubs team was a lot of fun to watch with Dansby Swanson and Chris Bryant and Anthony Rizzo and Javi Baez.
MVP, Chris Bryant.
Right. Like, that was a fun team to watch.
What a fall from grace for those guys.
I know. I mean,
like Anthony Rizzo, I don't think is on a team. Chris Bryant isn't on a team.
Yeah. I mean, Chris Bryant went to the Rockies and his career just kind of fell apart, which happens a lot to Rockies players. Javi Baez having a resurgent year this year. He's got 9 home runs. Might be an all-star, actually, with the Tigers. But after 3 or 4 years of being maybe the worst player in baseball. But that was a great series. If I'm not mistaken, that went to extras. Yeah, Cubs won 8-7 in 10 innings. So hard to beat an extra innings World Series Game 7. Cubs won that one. The year before that, Giants beat the Royals 3-2. Even years for the Giants. That was their 3rd in 5 seasons.
Yeah.
The year before, or a couple years before that, one that you liked, Cardinals over Rangers.
That wasn't a good game.
Like, that Game 7 doesn't fall in there, but in terms of one of the best playoff games of all time, Game 6, the David Freese game, has to be up there.
Unbelievable. Oh, I remember watching that. I was 7 when that happened, so I was sorry to everyone who feels very, very old, but I just remember sitting on the floor watching that one.
Yeah.
That was David Freese became my favorite player that day.
Yep, he became a legend that day.
He was a very, very average role player.
Right, but he made the big swings in the right moments. And Joe Buck, quoting his father, Jack Buck, "We will see you tomorrow night." And the Cardinals did take Game 7 the next day. We were just saying that Ron Washington, who is the manager of those Rangers teams that got very close to a championship a couple of times in the early 2010s, he just stepped away from the Angels, where he is the manager currently, or was the manager. So all the best to Ron Washington.
Yeah.
He was portrayed in Moneyball. It's very hard, or it's extremely difficult.
Great movie.
Yeah, great movie.
Love Moneyball.
Matthew from Jolton says the 2016 NBA Finals, Cavs come back from 3-1. I think that's going to be
the number one answer.
Of people who have, of our age, I think that's probably the one.
That was the second time they met, right?
Yes, that was the second, and then they met 2 more times after that.
We thought it was never going to end
with KD in 2017 and 2018, and it really wasn't all that close in those series. Were both of those gentlemen sweeps 5 games? I think they were.
Yes. Yeah.
So, but yeah, 2016, the moments in that game, you could stack up with any Game 7 ever. With, again, LeBron blocking Iguodala, Kyrie hits the big shot that really put it away for the Cavs. So that one's good. I think people maybe forget about the Spurs Heat one, though. I mean,
that was fun.
The Ray Allen shot obviously is the big moment from that, but that was a really fun series, getting to see the Spurs dynasty with Popovich and Duncan and Parker and Ginobili face off.
Kawhi Leonard.
Right. Yeah, Kawhi Leonard was starting his ascent. And then you had the big 3, the super team of James, Wade, Bosh. So that series will always stand out to me too. And that was one of the best Game 7s we've ever seen.
Yeah. We could go back before our time.
Right.
It wouldn't be fair because we witness it.
I've heard of a lot of these, but yeah, I mean, we're dating ourselves.
Yeah.
In terms of, I don't remember. I know that Diamondbacks Yankees World Series was great, but I was 2 at that point. So, but Game 7s are almost always live up to the hype. Like, Yeah, there'll be a blowout here and there, but you look back at the baseball game sevens in the World Series since 2000, the largest spread is 4, 3 different times, but a lot of one-run games in there. In hockey, it's rare that you see a blowout in the finals. I mean, the Panthers won 2-1 over the Oilers last year.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for Game 7 on Sunday. Do I think it's going to turn into an instant classic? Obviously, you never know. Like, it's all how the game plays out. But if I had to guess, I think the Thunder win it by 8-10.
Yeah, I think it's close throughout the game, but I think the Thunder, hit some free throws near the end, and I don't think the score will be indicative of the kind of game it is. I agree with you. I think the Thunder will win by 8-10, but I think it'll be very close until it gets to crunch time, and the Thunder just kind of hit some free throws and seal it away.
It's going to be tough after Monday. And I love the MLB, or I love Major League Baseball, but after Monday, when the College World Series is done, the NBA Finals are done,
we'll have nothing.
It's kind of the lull in the sports calendar until football season. So it'll be tough. I love watching baseball, but when it's the only thing on and there's not a big sporting event on a Tuesday night, it does make it tough. Matthew does clarify 2018 was not a gentleman's sweep between Cavs Warriors. It was a actual sweep. That was the game 1 when J.R. Smith grabbed the rebound down 1 and ran away because he thought, or no, was it tied? Or they were down 1. It was one or the other, but he didn't know the score and just ran away, which you'll see the meme of, LeBron with his asking for the ball. That was a great game, but I think the other 3 games in that series were all blowouts. So that Warriors team was too good with Kevin Durant on it. I'm glad that they broke that up.
Thank God. They ruined basketball.
At the very least, we've gotten ourselves a good series. And even if it is not all that competitive on Sunday, I think this is one that we'll remember as a fun series. But, historically, I don't know if we're going to look back and remember this one in the same vein that we have previous Game 7.
Right. Like, it's no disrespect to either team, but it's 2 pretty forgettable teams. Like, 10 years from now, are we really going to look back and say, hey, remember that great series between the Thunder and the Pacers? And maybe.
I'm sure there are diehard NBA fans who are laughing at us saying that they're going to remember this one. But, I'm not a diehard NBA fan. I follow the NBA, but it's definitely not one of my top 2 favorite sports to watch.
If I were to rank leagues, I'd go college basketball, college football, NFL, MLB, NHL, college baseball, and then maybe
the NBA. Wow!
So they are 7th on that list.
And you are a big,
and I'm a hoops guy.
Like, you love college basketball. I'd put NFL and MLB first, I think, then probably college football, college basketball.
Yeah,
and then NHL, NBA.
I forgot one. I'd put women's hoops.
Yeah.
College women's
hoops at the top for me.
Yeah. There you go. Plug yourself.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. We asked the question, what is the best championship Game 7 that you can remember? Matt from Camden, who sent in 2016 Cubs Indians, he mentions also was the Cubs' first World Series in over 100 years, but he's also a Cardinals fan.
Go Cards, baby.
Yeah.
We're suffering right now, but go Cards.
Has it not been good lately for the Cardinals?
They've hit some hard times. They did just sweep the White Sox, which doesn't mean as much as you would think it would, but
the White Sox have been better this year.
They're turning it
better than the Rockies at the very least.
The Rockies are turning it up right now.
They are. Their manager said, don't let us get hot.
They have what?
15 wins on the season or whatever it is.
17.
So, sorry. Don't want to shortchange it.
Yeah.
615-737-1025 is the phone number. Game 7 coming up on Sunday between the Thunder and the Pacers. And again, College World Series this weekend. The last real big weekend before football season. We're excited for it. We'll wrap up the show coming up next here on this Fireball Hot Take Friday. Again, if you want to chime in, 615-737-1025. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Jake Lyman and Connor Newt filling in for Jared Stillman today. Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game. Wrapping up the show on this Friday, taking you into your weekend. Jake Lyman, Connor Newt filling in for Jared Stillman today. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063. The Game. Big weekend coming up. We got Game 7, NBA Finals on Sunday. And last call, if you have thoughts on your favorite Game 7 of all time, we'd love to hear it. 615-737-1025. College World Series Championship Series starts tomorrow between LSU and Coastal Carolina. I did mention earlier I'm heading over to the Sounds game tonight. If you're looking for a Sounds game to go to, and I know it starts in like less than an hour, but Shota Imanaga for the Cubs rehabbing down there. He's their best pitcher. Brewers have Garrett Mitchell rehabbing down there. Also have Tyler Black playing and Jefferson Caro, who's one of the big prospects. So
and Andrew Vaughn, who is a
former White Sox player. So if you're looking for a game with a lot of former or future MLB stars in it, this might be the one to go.
Bobby Dahlback for the Sounds is slugging right now.
He was with the Red Sox for a while, right? Or am I mixing him up?
I believe so.
I think that sounds right. But if not, you can listen with Jeff over on 94.9 The Fan. 620 pregame. Yes, love us some Jeff M.
Not sure he knows what I look like, but we love Jeff M.
We were talking about the NBA and kind of where it stands for us in terms of our fandom. Nationally, if you watch ESPN, you would think that it's up there with the NFL. I think the gap with the NFL is just massive.
Oh, there will never be a league that overtakes the NFL.
The NFL is light years ahead of everybody else. I do think, and maybe this is a hot take for our Fireball Hot Take Friday, but I think the MLB, after taking a step back for a while, and, a lot of people didn't watch the MLB, I think it's coming back a little bit.
Well, you have stars that are like Shohei Ohtani has just emerged and carried the game of baseball with him. But you have other like
Aaron Judge,
Paul Skeens, Mookie Betts. I mean, all of these stars that these kids look up to, and I think that's kind of helped baseball become cool again.
Yeah, and probably does help. We were talking earlier about how this Game 7 maybe doesn't have the same hype around it because there's no LeBron, there's no Steph Curry, there's no Dwayne Wade. Last year, the World Series, even though it wasn't a great series and it ended in 5, you got the matchup that got the most eyes on the game with Aaron Judge versus Shohei Ohtani.
And they were
Yankees,
great games.
Dodgers. Right, the games were good even though it ended in 5.
Yeah. Baseball, MLB is one of those sports where it feels like every team, just about every team, has some sort of star player.
Yeah.
Like your Tigers.
Tarek
Skubal. Spencer Torkelson is coming into his own.
We were just talking about the Mariners, who are a sneaky team this year. Cal Raleigh has hit the most home runs by a catcher before the All-Star break ever.
And they have Julio Rodriguez, too, who's a young star.
Well, and there's still 3 weeks to go till the All-Star break, and he's hit 29 home runs.
It's road to the show numbers.
It's crazy. So I think baseball is kind of coming back. I think there maybe was a little lull there where people didn't pay as much attention. But I think it's kind of MLB is coming back. NBA might be going down. Hockey, I think, it wasn't as paid attention to in the United States.
Right.
But people who start to get hooked on hockey, they're fans for life.
Yeah. Baseball, I think, it falls into a rite of passage sport where if you're a little kid, like 3, chances are you're probably playing either soccer or t-ball.
Yeah.
So I think that's where some of it comes from, is all these kids are, I play baseball.
Yeah. You got to pass baseball down to your kids.
You do.
Can't let it die.
Don't let it die. We love baseball.
I think it is a very, because the kids who play soccer are usually the ones whose dads don't like baseball.
Yep.
But I think if you pass baseball down, it's going to continue to grow. And you're right. The star power in baseball, it's back to where it was back in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And that's big for baseball. And it does help. Not that I don't love a lot of the things that Rob Manfred has done, but I do think the shortening of games has been huge with the pitch clock and limiting the disengagements on the mound and all the things that they've done to shorten the game. Having less than 15% or so of your games go over 3 hours, it is good for the sport. Even though I may not love, like, if I show up to a baseball game and it's over in 2 hours.
Right. I'd honestly say you could go through every MLB team and 25 of the 30 would probably have some sort of star.
Yeah, some sort of recognizable name.
Like the Rockies don't have one.
Yeah,
because they're terrible.
The White Sox don't
White
have
Sox,
one.
The A's maybe. Although Brett Rooker is pretty good.
There are a few teams that don't, but you're right. Like there is a good spread of talent across. Like even the Pirates, who our friend Matthew in Nashville said, "Give me a break. Your cards are nowhere near as bad as my Pirates."
I'm sorry, Matthew.
But the Pirates at least have Paul Skeens, who again got a no decision last night. By the way,
of course he did.
The Pirates did win the game, but they blew a lead before they could do so in extra innings. So I think you're right. I think baseball, the star power is big, and that's a lot of the reason I think the NBA is starting to decline is, LeBron's still playing. Yeah, Steph's still playing. But the last couple of years, they're not the ones at the end of the season who are playing for a championship. And it makes people less interested in it. I think if LeBron was playing in this Game 7 tomorrow, you wouldn't see anything else on these TVs except for LeBron in Game 7. Like, we've got Sports Center on, and not a good moment. They just went to NBA Finals Game 7.
Yeah,
but
they heard you.
We've seen a whole lot of other sports on there. I think if it was LeBron playing on Sunday, if it was Lakers and Pacers in Game 7, no one would shut up about it.
Right. And that's why, I don't know. It's just not the national staple it used to be back when, we were kids. Even then, you had star power. LeBron was coming into his own. Steph Curry was getting started. But you had, like, Derrick Rose, John Wall, who made basketball cool again. My favorite player of all time.
I love John Wall.
Oh, I love John Wall.
I've told you that I sat in the same restaurant at breakfast as John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins when they were at Kentucky.
No.
Oh, I didn't?
You did not?
Yeah, I was sitting, I was at breakfast, and sitting 2 tables over was John Wall, and Boogie Cousins was wearing a Cookie Monster t-shirt.
Oh. Did Boogie Cousins make some obscene gestures?
He did not. He was 18 at that point.
Oh,
so
good.
So I guess what does that make me? What year were they at Kentucky?
09, 010.
09. So yeah, I was
010.
I was 10. So
okay.
I was young.
That's the first team I remember.
Yes, I do remember. I was sitting there and I got to see them. Was Coach Cal there too?
It was his first year.
Yeah, he might have been there too.
This is Waffle House?
It was not a Waffle House.
Cracker Barrel.
No.
Denny's.
I don't know if
Shoney's.
I don't know if that's where Coach Cal
Shoney's
took his
breakfast
players. But yes, I did get to see. I will always say I got to see DeMarcus Cousins wearing a Cookie Monster
As
t-shirt.
much as those guys were making in college, it was a much better place than Waffle House. I'm
right.
sure.
I can't remember because I was 10, but yes.
You look like an IHOP guy to me.
Yeah, it could have been IHOP. Could have been IHOP. Maybe they lost their fantasy football league. Had to stay in there for 24 hours. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Wrapping up the show here. Game 7 on Sunday. I know we have our show tomorrow, but are we both thinking Thunder?
Yeah. I mean, we can save it, but I think we both
kind of
it.
like tiptoed around it.
Cat's out of the bag.
Well, and the good news is we will both separately be on with Robbie Stanley next week.
Yes.
I'll be on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Connor on Wednesday. So
hopefully Ian Safar will buy me a beer.
Yeah. You came through for Ian on those weekend winners.
I have gotten him within one. It's anyone's game. I believe the scoring total is Robbie has 62, Ian has 61, and Joe has 60. So
you got, and this is the last week, right?
So it's anyone's game. Joe's individual picks, he just picked the White Sox to get swept.
Yeah, that's pretty much what he always does. Been a fun show today. Got to a lot of good topics, and it's going to be a fun weekend. I've mentioned a few times, College World Series, Finals Game 7. If you want more of us, which there may be some of you out there, we'll be on with Nick Frazier tomorrow, usual time, Force Company, 9 a.m. to noon. A lot to get to there. We're going to talk some Preds as the NHL draft is coming up next week. So we'll get to that in the morning and much more, including some more talk on some college baseball, college sports as a whole, with all of the turmoil from the house settlement, including the big story that came out today, Wisconsin suing Miami, could be a big domino in terms of contracts and what may happen with the transfer portal moving forward. Big thanks to David Reed. Don't forget, Sounds over on 94.9 coming up at 6:20. And this weekend, plenty to listen to on the Game Nashville Sports Network. Some baseball, some NASCAR, and much more. And you can listen to Game 7 right here on 102.5 at 6 o'clock on Sunday. For Connor Newt, I'm Jake Lyman. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend. We'll talk to you tomorrow morning here on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.